right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City Community Development and Recreation Committee meeting. Before you guys even look at the agenda, I'll tell you it's wrong. I changed it on like my official copy on my computer, but Arias is my vice chair, but I accidentally still have Erica there. And in your inboxes and your emails are the minutes from last month. So I'll just assume if I don't get an angry email from anybody that everybody's okay with them, and I'll double check with that next month's meeting. Sorry, I'm looking for my pen. Matt and Arias are both on their way, but they are going to be running a little late. Where is
Did you print your mailbox out? That was in it last week.
I found it. Okay.
Is there stuff in your mailbox now? Yeah, that's yours.
I got one. Thank you, though.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I just got everything. Yeah, as soon as she started talking, I remembered to go grab it.
All right. So last month when we met, it pretty much looked the same. There are a couple new things in new business. Two pieces of legislation that somebody sent an email asking us to look at. I put a copy of that email in your guys' little stack of papers. Full disclosure, I do not know much about the two pieces of legislation that he references. So I'm hoping that that can kind of be a conversation tonight and see what we think about it, see if it's something we want to consider for our city, and see if we can divide and conquer and figure out some more information on that kind of legislation. And then the welcome packets, the two example welcome packets are also in there as well. But to begin with old business, Ms. Orb, do you happen to have an update on the Tree City USA board?
We were supposed to meet last week and everyone's schedule got a little hectic.
That happens.
So we are rescheduled for this week. I think it's this Thursday.
Okay. No worries. All right. Thank you. And then the Homeowners Assistance Fund, I have an update on that. I was supposed to meet today with our bill, with our Mr. Dieters, and that just needed to get rescheduled. So I'm going to meet with him hopefully on Wednesday to kind of get that paperwork finalized, figured out what we need to do with that, and then hopefully that'll be ready by next month's meeting. Mr. Mosby, do you have a comprehension plan update?
Just, Madam Chair, just where the comprehensive plan team is now in the stages of putting together the first set of stakeholder meetings.
Okay.
So that should probably be done the end of this month, the beginning of next month. But our next meeting, our next advisory board meeting is scheduled for March. So during that time, they'll be working to get these stakeholder meetings started.
Advisory board meeting in March, and then currently they're working on the stakeholder meetings.
Yeah, the first round of stakeholder meetings.
All right.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask him, since you mentioned the planning department, is there any request in that comprehensive plan? I know they're mapping out tons of stuff, but mapping out like a walking path or nature trail, we mentioned that in this meeting before.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in their plan of mapping out?
Well, the first step that we have to do is first to kind of basically to gather the input from the stakeholders. So that's one of the first phases.
Okay.
They're not going to make any recommendations until we actually get to that point where all the information has been gathered, when we've gotten enough input from as wide a variety or
Right.
group in the community as we can.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just checking. Thank you.
Who is currently on the advisory board? Do you guys have a kind of a list or like a rough draft of a
Yeah,
list?
so we have members of council, Mayor Joe Zorb and Mayor DeWald, myself, the president of the chamber, the
Okay.
North College Hill Chamber is also part of that. They have members from the comprehensive plan team,
Gotcha. Okay.
so that's what it consists of.
And then the current stakeholders, is that,
There are stakeholder groups that they're looking at, and what they want to be able to do is get input from each of these small groups. So basically what they want to do is have small meetings.
mhm,
So we have been working with Clovernook Country Club, and
awesome.
so we're getting, so that will be the venue, and then they'll be reaching out and getting these small groups together.
That'd be awesome, yeah. This is great. And then I have, moving quickly because we got lots to go over tonight and new business. I have an update for the recreation director from Mayor Nicholls. She won't be able to make it tonight, but she sent me her update. 2 people have been, have agreed to be members of the Recreation Commission that will be appointed by Superintendent Blaylock. So 2 people have to be, sorry, I was just looking at something else for a second. 2 people have to be appointed by the superintendent, and 2 people need to be appointed by the mayor. I could be wrong about those numbers, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So I know she already had her 2 people. She was just waiting for the superintendent. So now that we have those 2, I know that she's really excited about that. And so she's, I know, going to get a jump on that. She also informed me that there have been 2 interviews for the recreation director, and that they are looking to conduct a few more, hopefully having the position filled in the next month, if not before that. So I don't know if you had anything else to add, but that seemed pretty succinct. Awesome. All right. Moving down. So last month, I gave you guys this packet to kind of look over, see if there was anything in here that you guys would want to kind of steal their ideas from for North College Hill, anything you guys really liked, anything you guys know wouldn't work here. Did anybody have any likes, dislikes, ideas from that?
May I have another copy?
Yeah. Here, I'll let you steal mine. I don't know if I have a number. But my computer is on this right now.
Oh, I could just go make a copy of it in there.
I think it's somewhere in last month's email.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, make a copy.
Would you care to make 2? Because
make
I
2.
forgot to bring my copy with me.
Sorry, I know the agenda came out really late, so that's kind of on me. Should have warned you. While we are waiting, though, I know that for the youth recreation teams, we're kind of waiting on that survey from the comprehensive plan team to kind of come out. So is there any update on that survey or on, for the families, we asked for the comprehensive plan team to put together a survey for the families, figure out what they want in a youth recreation program.
Right, we're not at that point yet. Again,
Right.
we're just in the very early stages of starting to get this initial
Yeah,
stakeholder meeting together, so.
no worries.
We're-
I'm just gonna keep pestering until it happens.
No, that's fine.
That's just who I am. And then down to beautification. I know that last time we talked about the land at Hamilton and Goodman. You said that UDF hadn't contacted you back.
I don't know, I let Ms. Zorb, because my understanding is that you have connected or reached out to the person at Mr. Kling.
I must have fell down on the job. I didn't realize I was
Yeah,
supposed
I
to.
don't remember that either.
Yeah, well,
For-
because you
for-
had mentioned it on, and I had mentioned earlier on several occasions, I had tried to reach out to him, and you didn't, and he didn't contact me back. You had mentioned that you did know him, and so,
To,
that you,
to do what? What am I supposed to do?
referring to the property that's owned by UDF at the corner of Goodman and
So we're
Hamilton.
just trying to get like a kind of a summary. What do they want to do with that land? What are they looking to do with it? Do they want to do anything with it? If they would be willing to donate the land to the city, because last time we heard that the reason they didn't want to put the land up for sale is because they didn't want a rival gas station to come and buy the land. But we were saying maybe they would be interested in donating or for a small fee giving it to us to build a tree park or to build a playground, something there, and we can even put thank you to North College Hill UDF on a big sign for this land or something. But they haven't been getting back to us. So.
I'm sorry, I stand corrected. I apologize, it was not you, it was actually, I had spoken with Mrs. Anderson. So, I need to talk to her to find out where we are. So at this particular point, I don't
Okay.
want to say for certain.
Okay,
Okay.
so to be clear, I'm not
No,
contacting.
I apologize.
I was wondering. I was like, wait a second.
I think
Okay.
I was merging two discussions.
Alright.
There was a
You're good.
discussion that I had with you previously, and then a current discussion I had with.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
And Miss Anderson,
Yes.
maybe when the meeting's over, I could talk with you about how UDF purchased that property.
Oh yeah, I'd love to know. Yeah. I will put that in my notes, or if I don't write it down, I'll forget. And then I know you said you were going to talk to Marty Cole about switching the like the fancy Nancy lights on Galbraith from regular bulbs to LED bulbs. Were you able to talk to Mr.
No,
Cole
I
about
haven't
that?
talked to him about that one yet.
Okay. Yeah, if we could just get that done soon. I think it's been on our agenda for quite a bit. I'd like to see some movement on it. And then did you ever hear back from the Coleraine people about the adopt a pot thing at all?
Yes, he told me that the township didn't have it. I guess there is another private group that might be doing something, but it's not
Gotcha,
anything
okay.
that's sponsored by the township.
Okay.
So that would be just an outside, interest group,
Do you know what type of group it is? Like, is it a,
like a nonprofit or something like that, is it? Or
Right.
a neighborhood group?
right,
I'm not sure.
would you be willing to be able to find that out?
Yes.
As maybe we can ask
I wanted
a-
to make sure I had the right person, yes.
You're okay, because maybe we can ask a similar group, if there is one in North College Hill, to see if they'd want to partner up with us.
Well, what I was going to mention, and I don't know but, clearly we have Carla Belcher, who
Right.
is handling the, community guard.
Yes,
So that might be a person
right,
that would be interested in expanding
right.
that role, since it is dealing with green and environmental.
Well, and I know too, she's on the Tree City USA board too.
Yeah.
And I know she is one of the people who is gonna be appointed to the Recreation Commission. I
Okay.
know she's already taken on a lot of roles, so I don't wanna pressure her into another thing, but I know it's her jam, I know she likes it, so,
Okay.
yeah, that'll be good. I'll see if I can reach out to her and see if we can,
And I'll reach out to Coleraine.
okay. All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can I back up to the
Of
LED
course.
lights on Galbraith?
please.
Mr. Mosby, I have a very slight recollection, and maybe you might be able to help me. I thought that this was discussed in an earlier time, and we were hoping to get Duke Energy to help pay for them or even pay for them. And they were like, no. Do you recall anything like that, Ms. Zorb?
Actually, yeah, because I spoke to a guy at Duke. I have his contact
No,
information.
you were the contact. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know his last name was Ebrans. I can't think of his first name at this point, because it was probably 2 years ago now.
I know, it's
But
been a while.
we were looking for grants that would help us pay for our part. As I recall, the guy at Duke told me it was like a 3-year return on investment if we paid for it. After 3 years, the lights would, at that point, start paying for
Paying for
themselves.
themselves,
Yep.
basically. Okay.
I mean, that's not really a long time in the grand scheme of things, so,
It's really not,
no.
considering the benefit going forward after that 3 years.
Right, and I mean, the sooner we switch,
Right.
So may I, just for another moment?
of course,
Um,
please.
So I think we may have a grant writer on board in our establishment.
I think I know her. Can't put my
What-
can't put my
can't-
finger on her name.
I can't remember her name, but if you mention it, I'll know who it is.
Yeah.
I wonder, would it be a burden to ask her to look into this for a grant? Or is that something that council needs to move on? How do you,
No, council doesn't need to move on anything for that. I need to, I need to talk to, there's a gentleman who is he's a community, like, liaison for Duke, who helps us a lot with these kinds of programs. So I would probably need to talk to him. But I know, for example, that Duke, I know that they do a lot of, they've literally given away LED bulbs, especially for residential units, for free.
Oh, yeah.
I
Right.
don't know why, so I'd have to ask him, because I'm not sure why we would need to, quote unquote, pay for something like that.
Right.
right,
Because it's not just a LED bulb, you have to change the
pole?
whole housing.
Yeah, no, I understand that, I'm saying, but there are certain things that they do, and that's part of the community, especially if they are conserving energy, and they have an entire, like, department that is committed to doing that. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I'll ask him about it.
So then, Mr. Mosby, you're gonna reach out to the Duke person
Yes.
and, okay. And then to Mr. Cole as well. Perfect. So for the Chamber of Commerce, sorry, I'm just gonna keep going down until we hit the bottom and then I'll go back up to the, Silverton Arts. For the partnering with Chamber and possibly CIC, to promote the materials for Hamilton construction. I didn't update this list, but I know last time we also talked about like kind of like a scavenger hunt kind of thing, and that we really didn't want to waste too much of our time on it until we figured out what those businesses wanted and what the Chamber of Commerce wanted and what they would want to see from us as a city to help them out during that time. Were you able to talk
Yeah,
to?
I actually met with them, and so one of the things that they were looking to do is something that they did very similar to when COVID first came out.
Right.
And what they did was they highlighted certain businesses. And by the way, when they did that, I want to point out that the businesses that they included were not all necessarily part of the chamber. So the
Right.
chamber was really doing the community a great service.
They
by
were. I remember, yeah.
that is the same idea that they were looking at doing here. So they
Okay.
were going to highlight the businesses that are on Hamilton Avenue. I do have a couple of pieces of information, logistical information that I need to get back to them, but that's what they plan on doing.
Okay. Is there anything that they want from council or from the city at
Really
all?
anything from council, I mean, administratively, like I said,
Right.
they might need some information from me, but I
Okay.
don't think they need anything.
Okay. I'm gonna move that to like an update thing for since you guys seem to be moving on it and the chambers told you what they want. I'm gonna change that to like an update thing for the next meeting, just so you know. Just so we can stay informed on, what's going on in case anything does come about that we need to do. And then also, since I was supposed to meet with our bill today, I was gonna talk about the CIC resolution, but since that meeting couldn't happen today, I'm gonna bring that up on Wednesday. So I wanted to leave it on here so that way I wouldn't forget to include it in next month's agenda, but that is kind of void for the moment. All right, so back up to recreation program development. The arts program, Silverton Art and Public Places. Was there anything from this that people really liked, that people were really interested? Any ideas that grew from it? I personally really like how they outline on the back, I think I mentioned this last time, how they outline the funding. I mean, that's basically what as a council we do anyway, so that would be the main part we'd be looking at. So that's what drew my eye. I noticed in here too, I mean, anybody who knows me knows I get annoyed by the amount of like committees and commissions that a city has. But they have a distinctive, under roles and responsibilities, a specific Parks, Art, and Culture and Trees Committee. We already have the Tree City USA, so I think that would be repetitive if we included trees, but a Parks, Art, and Culture, maybe even just with our Recreation Committee, or Commission, kind of giving them, I don't know, I would have to look in our charter, I guess, of how much we can do, but kind of giving them a directive of, hey, this is what Silverton's focused on. I don't think we need to start a whole new commission or committee for it. I think that's silly, but kind of showing this to them maybe and seeing if they have any ideas for this at all or ways to implement it.
You mean showing this to our comprehensive plan? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
that and that's a good idea too, but also our Recreation Commission that is starting up again. All right, well, hearing nothing, I will leave this on the table. It is nice to get ideas. It's just hard because, I mean, other than money allocation, there's not much that council does for public art. I mean, it's not like we can pass legislation that says everybody has to paint twice a day. So, other than that, I think it's nice to get ideas. I think it's nice to know what other cities are doing, and if we ever want to reference back to this.
So, I know at one time we talked about murals and locations for murals and stuff like that, and I thought Matt was going to reach out to somebody that you knew, and I am really struggling with my memory.
Artworks.
Well, I said look at locations. Think about where they would maybe be appropriate. And, you know, honestly, I've been driving around thinking about it. And think like the side of Buddy Rogers is one option.
Yeah.
They're willing to do it. Scally's is a possibility, right? Old World Bakery. North College Hill Bakery would be good, but the problem is it has the siding.
Yeah, I was.
Not really conducive to a mural. It's a shame because the height of the building.
Well, they also have their own sign there, like on that side of the building that you're talking about. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but you know, because like I said, I think you know one of the issues is that you know there needs to be a commitment from the landowner to essentially tie a contract to the title right.
Right.
So you kind of want a more stable, like someone you think is going to be like a landowner of that building using it for like a long period of time.
I mean,
You wouldn't want to choose a building that very well could be another business in a year. That's when you.
right. But I think any of the three things that you just listed, I mean, they've all been in North College Hill as long as I've been in North College Hill, so at least 23 years.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Buddy Rogers is probably a good one. I'm not sure. Is Bill still? I know Dave retired, right? It was Bill and Dave that used to own it, and I think Dave retired, but I think Bill still owns it.
I'm not certain, so. I'd
Okay.
have to-
I mean, I could look into that if we got serious in terms of like approaching them to see if they're even interested in something like that. I don't have a contact at Scally's Old World Bakery, but someone could reach out to them.
I was thinking.
Erica, your building's not bad, but you have the siding issue too.
It's not even siding, it's tile, like glass or some kind of glass.
Like on the
tile.
side of the building.
Well,
That's
what
a
about,
bummer too, because it's not, it's a little too close, I think, though, to the, at least the one side is too close to the, because that's the other thing, you need like space too.
Right.
Like, you know, to have like the right building, like it's an absurd amount of conditions to really make it work,
Right.
because like you could have this tall building and there's another building that's right next to it, so you can't really see most of
Right.
the mural if you're like traveling down the road. That's why Buddy Rogers is good, because they have that big parking lot, right? So there's
Right.
no building that close. Scally's, it almost need to be the front of the building, right?
Right, and they have that, like, cause where the restaurant used to be, they have that empty storefront window, you know?
What
Yeah.
about the side of the building that faces the graveyard? I know it sounds a little gruesome, but
Okay, I was
It's
thinking about
visible.
that too, right, but like Matt said, we would need something that would keep ownership. And I feel like that place has switched over ownership frequently.
yeah, I don't know the history about that.
I don't either, but
Building's in just bad shape too,
that too.
and that's an issue.
Not that side of
says
the
that
building.
There's a curse.
Huh?
I thought you told me there was a curse.
Oh,
There's a curse?
Yeah.
You thought it was cursed?
All I know is that it's called like the Carey Cemetery or something, so I know it's related to like the Carey Cottage, and that's my favorite place in the whole wide world, so
Yeah.
that's all I know about that
Yeah.
cemetery.
I wouldn't use that building. You know, I mean, if it just like, again, just the stability of ownership and tying it to the thing, and then the building itself, because I don't know, I mean, the problem is if there's any structural problems with the wall too, like Artworks is gonna wanna paint on it. I mean, they really look for stability, like longevity, and then placement, and then ownership. That's the other thing. I mean, they're gonna want ownership cooperation too. Usually they ask the owners sometimes to throw in a little bit of money and put a little skin in the game, so to
Right.
speak. So, but for me, I think, I don't know, the only places that kinda look right to me is Scally's and potentially like Buddy Rogers.
Because I know Buddy Rogers used to have a mural there.
They did, it was mine.
Really, it was really good.
Ah, thank you. But the problem is like, you know, and this is kind of like how things can get a little fickle, is like I painted it, it had a guitar, they were selling guitars at the time, and then they decided to no longer sell guitars, they switched to all band equipment.
Yeah, they are.
So they asked me if I could like change the instrument, like, nah, that's not how a mural works, like I'd have to redo the whole thing, right? So,
So they painted over the whole thing.
yeah, and they were nice, like they asked my permission or blessing or whatever it was. It wasn't like they just did it without saying anything. But it's just like, nah, I really can't fix it the way you want to fix it. And I just said, just go ahead and paint over. But, you know, Artworks, it's like more of a contract, right?
Right.
Like long term. And don't get me wrong, I think that, you know, it could work out, you know, because a lot of times they don't necessarily tie the mural into the business itself, right? They
Right.
usually try to paint a mural that's somehow reflective of the neighborhood or something else. They don't like see their murals, and that's the other thing that gets kind of tricky about it, because a lot of business owners, you know, let's just say you are a bakery, you know, in their mind, you're like, well, if you're coming here, I want you to paint cupcakes on the side of our wall, and that's not how it works. So that can be kind of tough too. So, because as many as you see downtown, like, you know, I worked for a business where the guy owned the building, and he just, like, it didn't work out, like in the sense that he just was too, I was gonna say it, stubborn,
Right.
and like not very evolved about art, you know, let's just say. And he, you know, like in his mind had to hand pick something he thought would be like cool that he wanted, and it's not how it works. And the mural ended up getting painted as the one that's right across the street from the new Kroger.
Huh.
Indian artist, very colorful,
Right.
kind of, you know what I'm talking about? Gorgeous. Like that could have been on the side of his building, but because the dude was
Because
just
he
not all
was,
that
yeah.
evolved, it wasn't gonna happen. So,
There's a lot more that goes into it.
oh yeah, it's
So then
rough.
would you said you're gonna reach out to the Buddy Rogers people though?
I mean, I can. I mean, if you really want me to. I mean, if that's like somewhere where we are.
I mean, I think it's always
I mean,
just good to get.
for me, it's like, you know, I kind of have the feeling it's almost worthless bothering Artworks if we don't
Right.
have a building owner that's got the right kind of building.
So then that
Number
sounds
one, in
perfect.
the right
Let's
kind of
let them-
place. Number two, with the right kind of wall. Number three, and is actually willing to really entertain the kind of commitments that it takes to do it, number 4, which is really the most important part, you know?
I get what you mean. Yeah, that,
Madam Chair,
go ahead.
I wanted to add also, when you're on the Ludlow Viaduct, this is a different idea. I don't know how much it costs, but when you're on the Ludlow Viaduct, and I guess you're going north, over the years when you're entering north side, they've actually used the bulletin boards or whatever you want to call it. They probably had to rent it out to put nice advertisement about what a
Billboards.
great community it is. But they look to be advertising billboards, and I'm sure they have to pay for 4, 5, 6 months, and then it gets changed. But over the decades, they've used that to, put something positive about their community as you're leaving the viaduct, because when you're leaving the viaduct, you're entering north side.
Are there
Right,
any
we would
billboards?
we then need to check our sign ordinance on that. I think the only thing we've got equivalent to a billboard now is a
Yeah.
park bench.
Or like our sign out here. Yeah, I don't think we have any billboards in North Cottrell.
Yeah, I don't think we do, but I was just listing that as an idea, that's all.
Yeah, that's an idea. We just have to check our sign ordinance and see
Yeah.
if and where we could put
Just another idea,
one.
you're talking about physical buildings, but I think they rent them out for maybe 4 to 6 months, because they change. They're not always about north side. Sometimes they're about companies, but every now and then north side,
Right.
on either side of the viaduct, they'll have something positive about the community. Usually it just shows people on the
Right.
children,
I've never noticed that, but yeah, that's
viaduct,
interesting.
yeah, on the
Good for them.
viaduct.
All right. So we got Matt, you're going to talk to Buddy Rogers, see if they would even be interested, and just see if they were, what they're kind of looking for, just if they would even be interested or anything. All right. Finally, down to new business. So, about a couple weeks ago, we got an email from a person with the Cincinnati Tenants Union. They are the steering committee chair. So I actually found out about this from an old friend who let me know that there was some grievances between the tenants and the owner of the apartment building on Galbraith down by the church United, is it the United Methodist Church? Because a new owner came in and is, this is all hearsay, I'm not actually sure, I'm not very involved, but was kind of cracking down on late fees and is raising rent soon. So I, other than as a, person who lives in North College Hill, I, as a city councilwoman, was just kind of like, okay, because we don't really have much that we can do for that. But then they reached out and asked if we would be willing to look into 2 different pieces of legislation. In the middle paragraph there, they talk about a late fee. So in Cincinnati, I guess they have a late fee cap monthly at $50 or 5% of the monthly rent, whatever is greater. They also have a pay to stay legislation, which this person claims has potential to help calm the social dysfunction generated by evictions. I don't know anything about this kind of legislation. I don't know enough to have an opinion about it. So I was hoping that we could kind of talk about it, if it's even a piece of legislation that our city would want to consider, if it's something that we would be interested in. If you guys are interested in, I can do some more research and provide that research for the next committee meeting. I just don't know enough about it to be like, hey guys, here's what I think we should do. So I wanted to get your guys' opinion on it, if anybody had one.
I'd love to see what Cincinnati has for a pay-to-stay legislation. I don't understand how that would work.
I don't either. Yeah. I was kind of hoping one of the lawyers knew what this was talking about.
Well, it's an ordinance, right? There's state codes in terms of like, limitations on the ability of landlords to have certain leasing provisions, and there are certain processes that landlords have to follow to evict people and things like that. It's just essentially, it's a city ordinance that adds on to that and adds certain rules in terms of like, well, apparently like a cap on the amount of late fees that a lease could have or
Right.
anything like that. For instance, like under state law, you can't have what's called an attorney fee shifting provision where a landlord has a lease that says if you don't pay rent and I have to evict you and sue for back rent, you have to pay my attorney's fees. You're not allowed to have that in a residential lease. You can have it in a commercial lease, but you can't have it in a residential lease. So
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
did you Google the same thing?
that's essentially what it is. It's just like, Cincinnati has obviously a lot more legislation than we have
Right.
about a lot more things, right? Because it's a much larger area. I mean, theoretically speaking, some cities have legislation about discrimination in workplaces that protect sexual orientation and stuff like that that the state of Ohio or federal government doesn't have, So, I mean, we are allowed to pass ordinances and legislations that regulates things like landlord-tenant relationships. We can even pass certain like employment discrimination laws that go beyond what the state has and things like that.
I knew we were allowed to pass that. I just wasn't sure what it was. But go ahead.
Pay to stay, it looks like pay to stay, a pay to stay ordinance basically means that it requires landlords to stop an eviction if the tenant can pay all of their past due rent and late fees.
That's because,
No. Go ahead.
because in Ohio, we don't have.
Hey, Rhea, sorry. Can you talk into your mic?
Oh,
sorry.
yes. It's because in Ohio, it says, Ohio is one of the 5 states that permits landlords to file an eviction immediately after non-payment. So this would be like in protection of that.
Yeah, I think a breach of the lease, aside from non-payment, you have to wait a month. But for non-payment, I think you can file an eviction immediately. I think that's correct in Ohio.
I mean, like I said, I want to look more into this, but I feel like that just kind of sounds like a common sense sort of thing. If somebody can pay what you're, but anyway,
Well,
I understand
maybe.
it's different. I mean, my point of view on this is going to be different than a landlord's, is going to be different from a renter's, is going to be, but anyway. Is that something you guys would be interested in possibly having for North College Hill?
I mean, we can talk about it. I'd have to see it. I mean, there's always like a balancing of the equity, so to speak, I think it's one thing if a tenant gets behind once, but at the same point in time, if there's a tenant that's like habitually,
Oh, yeah.
Behind
I mean,
and
I don't
always
want to
late,
take the
then-
freedom away from
Yeah.
the renters. I agree. Especially, I mean,
it's certain, yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
no, I mean, I'm kind of thinking out loud. I don't want so much red tape for building owners to the point where they don't want to buy and rehab and make nice buildings in North College Hill kind of thing. But I also don't want it to be so free, loosey-goosey for building owners to where they purposefully want to buy in North College Hill so that they can make more money and screw over their renters, if that makes sense. So, I'll go ahead, I'll look up some stuff over this month and provide more information next council meeting so that we can know more about this before we jump into it.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
This may be something we already went over, but it was something I did while we were waiting to meet again. Last time we had talked about the youth recreation teams, and we mentioned the golf program up at the country club.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to him, and he said he'd be willing to work again with the superintendent. And I sent that information over to Mr. Blaylock to do so. And they're going to increase the amount of scholarships this year for us so that we can give kids in the community opportunity. And so he's going to talk with Mr. Blaylock, but at some point we need to advertise once they get the little quota together, because it shouldn't just be kids that attend North College Hill. It should be kids who just live in North College Hill, so we'll be able to maybe utilize some of that time to,
Awesome.
that commercial space we were talking about,
Mhm.
to reach the community, to let kids who like maybe go to private schools or
Oh, yeah.
just go to different schools to be able to go. So he's gonna let me know how many spots he's gonna give us, and it's like 3 different weeks in June,
Mm-hmm.
where kids would be able to select which camp week would be best for them.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, working on that.
So, Mr. Mosby, is that something that you can kind of put on your list to advertise when we get that information on, like, the website and the mayor's newsletter and all that kind of stuff?
We can do that.
Thanks, sir. All right. Anything else with the late fee and pay to stay legislation stuff before I go on to the next thing? All right, so. All right, so okay, I don't know what the context was of why we got this email. I don't know if somebody requested it, but I'm glad that we got it. It was an email from, sorry, I'm trying to pull it up. From a lady named, or person named Kathy Fisher, from the North Cultural Housing Provider, and something member and real estate agent, giving us 2 example packets of example welcome packets for like new residents of those areas. And I just figured I'd throw it onto our committee because I got the email and it seems like it has to do with city community development and recreation. So, Mr. Mosby, obviously this is not something council would put together, this is something administration would put together, but do you want our input or our suggestions of what to put in a packet like this? Do you need anything from us for something like this? Do you want us to point out things that we like, things that we don't like, things that we would change?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that we would need would just be to make sure that the funding is available in order to create it and reproduce it. That's the biggest thing.
So
But
there's,
yeah, we can do that. You know, we can put together a brochure.
because there's that money in there for the city community development part, right? So then, could that money be put towards something like this?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it certainly could if, and again, if council is saying that's what they wanted to go toward, then, yeah, that would be fine. Cause I don't have an exact number, but we would probably of these, although we have, quite a few people moving in and out, properties don't necessarily turn over as much as tenants do.
Right.
But if we're gonna have, something like this, we probably need enough for tenants as well as new property owners, so,
I would agree.
yeah. So
So
we would
then-
probably need, a couple thousand of these, easily.
A couple thousand a year?
Perhaps. We don't, we have turnover,
Oh, yeah.
in our community. I don't necessarily like that, but yes, we do have it.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think this is kind of a tool to help prevent turnover, in my opinion. I mean, you get people kind of feeling like they're part of a community right off the bat by giving them information, giving them ways to get involved. So then, back
It's
to.
not a problem, it's not a problem of putting it together, that's for
Okay.
sure.
So back to my first question. Would you be willing to take suggestions for what our committee would like to see in that packet? Because I think I and other people have opinions.
Well, if you're asking, what I would think is that if we get a group of people together from different areas, for example, perhaps, having someone from the business community, someone from perhaps the CIC, as you pointed out, perhaps someone from the community, and we can put a group together to do that. I think that would be very productive.
Okay.
Miss Anderson?
Yeah.
I don't know if this was before your time, but we had a meeting with her, Zoom, when COVID first started.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in regards to, oh, help me out with the verbiage here, when we did the increase in rental fees.
Rental registration fees.
Thank you. And she was a big proponent, a strong proponent, to be involved with that. And I know we all received that email. I looked over it, and I would wonder if you're going to get opinions, because she and her husband both own property here in North College Hill.
Who is this?
Kathy Fisher.
Oh,
Ca-
okay.
Yeah, Kathy Fisher, the one that sent the email.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like what's presented. I think it's a great idea. I know it used to be done, years ago, probably,
Well, no,
You
it
were
was
this
done
big.
when because I have a birth announcement letter from Mayor, I can't think of his name right now, and it's
Brooks.
Yeah, from Mayor Brooks welcoming me as an infant to the North College Hill City.
Right. And keep in mind, back then, we were a wealthier city because we had different sources of income and stuff. It's not as tight a budget as we have today.
Well, I
But-
think too, because I mean, I know that there's a budget for the mayor's newsletter, so I think it's also just a question of the manpower and the, when is it gonna get done and when is it gonna go out kind of thing.
Right.
And I mean, we have the money.
And it
Half of
would,
this.
right, and it would be,
It's
It
just a problem of if it's gonna get done.
right, and I think this particular setup is great, because it's very
Right.
itemized.
Are you talking about the College Hill one or the
The greenhouse.
the
one that
greenhouse?
has
See, I
greenhouse.
like the College Hill one too because I like how it says in the front, 4 things like, and then you can go to each one of those sections. But yeah, I
Right.
also like the Green Hills.
And we did in the past have a trifold one that opened up to a program similar to this.
Well, I mean, and anybody who's good with documents, I mean, I know somebody who works in the grant department who's very good at stuff like this. I mean, this can easily be turned digital.
Right.
You just, I mean, you can
Easily.
attach a QR code to this on the back, and then you
Exactly.
can scan and see a digital copy of this on our website.
And
But-
before we were digital, when we were a community of just typewriters and tape recorders, the woman that was our clerk at the time, she actually kept this updated. When a new business came in, if somebody's phone number changed, they knew to contact her.
Right.
So that's the only downfall I see with semi-mass producing something like this, because somebody's number is going to change. So I do like the idea of the electronic version,
Right.
because, but still, it needs human eyes on it.
There's even a way to save money. I mean, okay, so I went to the car show a couple weekends ago, and instead of seeing the big stickers in the window that told you like, oh, the price and the mileage, all you did was walk up to the window, you scanned the QR code on the window of the car, and it showed you everything you could need. It was interactive. You could ask questions. I mean, instead of sending out a pamphlet like this, for a lot less money, we could send out a tiny little postcard with a QR code on it and like an email or a number to call if you do want a paper copy of it.
Or a website link. like
Or a
if-
website link, or,
If someone
right,
doesn't have a scanner on their phone, at least they could go to the website.
Right.
And see the welcome letter. with
Right.
information
a website
on it.
link, a number, an email, so that way,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you are gonna get people who don't have smartphones, but you have a number on there, they can call city administrator and say, hey, I'd really like a paper copy of this, where can I
Mail
go
it
to get
out,
this,
right.
can I get one mailed to me? I feel like
Yeah.
that'd be a cheaper way to do it,
Yeah.
it would be a more efficient and user-friendly way to
efficient.
use it. I don't know if that's something
Yeah.
you would be willing to consider.
Well, I was actually going to ask you a couple of questions, because you did mention
Please do.
the College Hill.
Yes,
If I remember correctly, because I didn't get a copy of that, but I think that was actually something that was produced by the College Hill Urban Redevelopment Corporation.
okay,
And I have to check into this one, because I don't know who did this one for Green Hills. But the reason I'm pointing that out is because, the Urban Redevelopment Corporation, if they did it, it'd just almost be similar to if our CIC did it. That's basically what the
Right.
equivalent of that would be. And of course, that would be very helpful as opposed to it being something done solely by,
Right.
the government itself. So that is something I think that, we probably would need
Yeah.
to look into.
I also love doing this kind of stuff. I mean, if you guys are swamped, I am more than willing to like help come up with something. If you need some references, I helped Chief Fells design some of his stuff for the fire levy. If you need references, he's a good reference for me. I promise I will help out. So if you have my number, you know where I live. Please reach out, and I would love to help with that. I think it would be awesome.
So, Ms. Anderson, can I just jump in real quick? So I was a member, actually, it's still the president of Serve NCH, and for a while, Serve NCH was putting together I believe that's where Ms. Dewall was going, a little trifold
Okay.
welcome, just a little piece of literature.
Great.
I still have all of those documents, and I know when Ms. Bailey was on city council, that was one of she was really trying to work on getting a welcome packet put together. I think I probably still have my old documentation from that. If you'd like me to send you that, it would more than likely need to be updated.
Oh, yeah.
But at least it gives you ideas of
Right,
what we're putting on there for the North College Hill version.
right. Okay.
I can send that to
Yeah, I
you.
love that. That'd be great.
Yep.
Yeah,
Madam
and I
Chair.
mean it. Seriously, please, because I know you guys are busy people, and I don't want you guys to feel like council is just putting another thing on your to-do list, because I know, especially in this committee, I feel like I put, like, okay, go do this, go do that. So please reach out. I would really like to help with this, if you need it.
I apologize, I wasn't here.
You're good.
Did you guys talk about the one that they used to send out years ago?
Yes, that's what I think.
I
I
know-
saw a copy somewhere.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the one that I believe the mayor is talking about, which
okay,
is a much larger brochure.
Yeah, I used to send out many years ago. I'm not sure why they stopped.
Because we were talking about even doing like, instead of sending out a packet like this, because this is expensive, it's a lot of paper, it's a lot of, I don't know how postage works, I'm guessing it's a lot of postage, but even just sending out like a little, like postcard with like a QR code, an email and a number, and then a website link in case you can't use QR code.
Last time it was 4,000 plus to send out.
For postcards?
But-
We got last.
It's just new.
But that was to send to every
But
resident.
it's just new.
So if we're just talking about sending to the
Just
new
the
residents.
new residents, and then also smaller, like a smaller thing too. Right.
Stamp is like.
Well, I'm gonna put this on our agenda for next week. I think we got a lot of good ideas, and if we can get the references, I can get those on our agenda for next week, so we can kind of look at what we've done in the past and maybe what we want to do next.
Madam,
And then, if you, Mr. Mosby, you said you were gonna reach out to CIC, or who'd you say?
Yes, I did. I
Okay.
mentioned CIC.
CIC to see if they would want to get involved in making this as well.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So with this, first of all, I think the QR code is a really great idea because you can build links in there to the newsletter, and
Oh,
you know
yeah.
it's something that both old and new tenants can use on a continuum, and it just makes us look really forward and affluent. And
Sophisticated.
I love that. We can build a schedule for the food trucks and all those kind of different things, which would duplicately be probably in the newsletter, as they develop that. So it's endless as to what this
It
can
really is.
move forward to do. But how would we, as North College Hill, keep track of who's moving in, and stuff like that? Like, I don't.
I was told that,
Ms. Nichols, we're not gonna hear you.
The Rita, isn't that?
they checked, no, because everybody who comes in doesn't know that they have to pay taxes here.
Maybe
I
that would
did-
be a
I
good
didn't.
thing for
I
the
did not.
newsletter. Maybe.
What? That's gotta be reworded.
So, yes, first of all, the mayor is correct,
That might be a
the
good thing to
auditor's
include in here.
Website is part of that. there is another source. I know that we get a monthly roll from from one of our larger apartment complexes. That one would be crucial because obviously you have people coming in. I think where we would probably have the bigger challenge of what you're talking about is in single-family residences where the properties are being rented out.
But other
Because
cities
unless the
are
property
doing it.
owner tells us, hey, this person is moving out and this person is moving in, that one, we'd have difficulty tracking that. But in a couple of cases, we can, in particular if it's a property transfer, we can follow that. So that
How
would
do
give you an
others-
idea of how we
I'm
would track
sorry.
it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Go
cut you
ahead.
off. I was just gonna ask, how do other cities do it, do you know?
Yeah, exactly as the mayor said, if it's a property transfer, they look at the property listing. Years ago, they used every week, when we would get the what do they call them, the Northwest Press or whatever, right, they would look at those. But we can look online now, and we can see, when property transfers actually take effect in them.
So there's a way to do it, is basically what you're saying. Okay.
So I know one of the channels, and this would be, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, please go. No worries.
Mr. Mosby, one of the channels that we might be able to utilize, and you mentioned the CIC, is the one girl who's a realtor there. She has access to the
Angie,
MLS. And they can potentially,
That's a good
whoever
point, too.
homes sell within North College Hill, like yield it over with that packet, like a whole bunch of stuff. So,
Which is why I
That's
was
a good
saying
point.
too, that's precisely why I was saying that. And I'm just using the College Hill Urban Redevelopment Corporation as an example. That's one of the things that they can do. But they're a nonprofit, right? They're their own 501c3, and that's why I was bringing that up, because they don't necessarily bring the government directly into it. They are the ones that put the listings and all that on these brochures or on the documents, and then they can send them out. But that was my reason for bringing up the CIC. And you are correct. She being Ms. Darden, she's on the board of the CIC. So and absolutely, I know she sends out a lot of email correspondence pertaining to real estate.
I'm excited. I think that this would be awesome. I want all the new babies of North College Hills to get letters like I did. I'm sure I was happy when I got it. All right. Well, that is all I have. And I'm sorry, Matt, I went 3 minutes over your time, but I'm sure you'll be okay. All right. Anything else before we adjourn? And then, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm cutting myself off. Erica, I forgot to put the trails on this under beautification, but I meant to, and I put it in my notes to add that back.
I took notes from the time I got here.
Oh, you're the best. Yeah, I was taking my sloppy copy notes, but you're
Okay.
good. I'll just do the minutes. I don't mind. Anything else? Oh, all right. And we are adjourning at 7:34.
Okey-doke. So, welcome to the February 14th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting. Exactly what everybody wants to be doing and watching on Valentine's Day. So first up, I sent around an agenda. I emailed it. Sorry, I didn't have time to print today. So, number one on the agenda is to hopefully approve agenda and minutes. Number two, we will get our report from our new finance director. Thank you for coming tonight on Valentine's Day. It's this lame place to be. Sorry, we should have brought chocolates. Number three is to discuss the Hamilton project. I think I sent around separately. I'm sorry that I piecemealed all the emails, but I was working on my phone for the most part today, so I didn't have my computer to do this. Can someone take minutes?
I can.
Can you? Thank you. So I apologize for that, but you should have gotten, I received the legislation from Mike Graver today and I sent it around, so everybody should have gotten that.
Legislation for,
The Hamilton Avenue project, the road project.
okay.
Number four, as we probably remember, hopefully, we did appropriate approximately, I think, $50,000 for an economic developer contract. So I'd like to talk about the process today of starting to, whether it's put out a request for proposals or whatever process we need to do to try to find a firm to contract with. And then finally, and most fun, I put to discuss a splash pad, because I know the administration had talked a little bit with us about trying to get that project completed this summer, right? It was kind of a hope. So obviously, if that's going to happen, then we probably need to move on some things earlier rather than sooner. Sooner rather than later. It's all right. There we go. All right. So is everybody fine with the agenda? Yeah, cool, great. All right, meeting minutes, there's two.
Could we add new business on there for tonight in case there's any, because I'm going to have new business.
If there's some time, I mean, I don't foresee that, but,
I can do it after the finance report then.
Well, I would rather not, because I want to get to the other things, because there's some stuff that I really want to get to that we haven't talked about. The Hamilton Avenue project's particularly important because it is time sensitive. I know that the administration wanted us to get that done soon. I really want to get moving on economic developer, so maybe we could put as agenda item number 6, new business. So I think there was 2 sets of meeting minutes that were sent around. Mary Jo finished the November 8th one. She sent those to me, and I forwarded those to you maybe a few hours ago, so you should have those. I was not there, so, but they look very thorough. I felt like I was there. And then Marjorie's meeting minutes were sent around earlier today as well, so. Did everybody have a chance to review those? Oh, sorry. Yours were very good, too.
Thanks, Mary Jo.
I felt like I was there, and I was.
Yeah. Sorry I can't take them tonight. My computer's uploading. Sorry.
That's okay. I thank you for doing it in the past and always helping out. So, any questions, changes for either of those? All right, so all in favor of approving both sets of meeting minutes? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any nays? No nays? All right, unanimous. They passed. They're now official. Okay, finance director report. So we were handed.
Your revenue and expense for December
Okay.
Can you talk into the mic?
Here, I can move my computer so you can take up some seat, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm all right.
I'll either way with it.
Okay, so. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah?
No, you need to
I
be
don't- I
closer
don't
to
think
the
you're coming
mic,
into the
actually.
Still closer?
You're so short.
Okay, now can you hear me? Better?
Is that mic on?
I don't know that the mic is on.
Testing.
Yeah, it's on.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah.
is she able to sit in that chair maybe? And
Yeah, why don't you sit maybe there, maybe that'll help. And then.
Makes you realize how short you are.
That sounds better.
Okay, so in front of you, you have your revenue and expense for December. And this isn't the year end, this is just for the month of December, because we have Robin Roush, who is working with us to finalize our 2019 and 2020 reports, so we can file Hinkle. And she is very, very close. We should have 2019 hopefully done by Wednesday, Thursday, and then she'll go ahead and start with 2020.
is there anything in particular here we should target or look at?
You know, I've
Because
gone
it's-
through it and everything looks like, so far to me, everything looks like it is in line as where it should be. You know, just being as new as I am, trying to
Sure.
test the waters here and get a
Okay.
good idea of what is normal.
Yeah.
So everything looks like it's proceeding kind of like to target on budget.
Yes, I believe so.
Is there, when Miss Hall was here, she used to give these like really fancy Nancy presentations and it helped people like me who don't understand this at all. Is there a way that, I mean, I don't want to put like another thing onto your list of things to do, but like I'm sure there's like a copy somewhere of her presentation somewhere. If maybe we could get like a user-friendly version.
Sure, I'll see what I can find in her
Okay.
computer.
Thank you.
You're very
I'm
welcome.
so sorry that I'm giving you a job, but
Oh, it's okay.
I'm just, this means like nothing to me, to be honest. It's just kind of numbers on a page. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Beautiful though, beautiful numbers, but yeah.
Can I ask a really basic question? Who is Robin Roush?
She is our CPA that is outsourced to come in and file the 2019 and 2020 Hinkle reports.
Well, who was Carol?
She's in doing the bank reconciliations.
Okay, and on those bank reconciliations, Ron, can we expect to see those once a month? Because I was clerk and didn't see one for 2 years.
Well, you did see them. I need to, they had come out, already had done them. But,
Okay, well, I didn't see them. Maybe council did.
okay,
but-
okay, yeah,
But I
because I
think
know that
clerk
they were
should have a
submitted.
copy of those in their files. They should
Correct.
keep that.
Correct, but yes, they will. That was one of the things that, that Kirsten was referring to, is that once we get the 2009, well, the 2019 is just about balanced now, so that is what we will use to begin to get the reconciliations for 2020, and then moving into 2021.
And that's for the Hinkle?
So the Hinkle report that she is referring to is actually the annual financial report for the city. It's what we would call our it's our official but unaudited report. And then once we have that filed, that is when the state then comes in and says, okay, we'll audit, your filings for that particular year. So that's what, and the system that we file it into is called the Hinkle system.
And Ron, I know that we spoke about this before. Could you explain that membership, because it seems to fluctuate. I realize that one is combined, one is month to date, year to date. What is that based on again?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Mr.
So
Wong.
on the expense,
Uh-huh.
on the expense report,
Uh-huh.
it's line item 101101523,900.
523900.
Uh-huh,
101, 52390.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So,
Because every department has one.
right. So those are usually professional fees. In this particular case, you're looking at the police department. And so those would be fees, association fees or professional fees that they would pay, for their associations or their memberships for different organizations.
Okay, I had forgotten. I know you had given me an explanation. Thank you.
So, okay, sorry to put it in my term. Like if I belong to like an education newsletter that costs $12 a month kind of thing, that's the kind of thing it is.
If there is let me give you a better example of what Mr. Wall was asking about. So there is a professional organization for lawyers that we are a part of, right? And so we pay an annual fee, and then what that does is pays for us, the city, to be part of that particular association. So it's a fee that we pay on behalf of our city prosecutor as well as our law director. So that's what I mean. It's basically
Wait, we're
a
paying for
membership
our law
fee.
directors.
Membership fees?
Yes.
Was that part of the contract?
What contract?
That we would pay his membership fees?
It's not his membership fees, it's the city's membership fees.
It's kind of like, sorry. Chair, may I speak?
What's that?
Can I speak?
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
It's kind of like, have you ever heard of SHRM?
Have I ever what? I'm sorry.
SHRM.
No.
It's like a broader organization that kind of helps whoever, so my knowledge of it is connected to HR, but it's a membership that we would need to stay current on the laws for that. So
Oh,
it
okay.
doesn't belong to the individual, it belongs to the organization, but the individual who sits in that role would partake.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Sorry, that was more of just a curiosity thing. I'm sure you guys are good at all that jazz, but I just was curious.
Yeah, another comparable would be like the municipal league
That
or
was
something
that
like
was the
that.
one that I was thinking about.
Okay.
If there's no further questions, we could move on to the Hamilton Avenue project. Ron, do you want to present
Sure.
on that?
Yeah, actually, very happy to, because as you pointed out, we're getting close to beginning that project. So I will review it just briefly for the benefit of members of council. The project itself is a project that spans both North College Hill and Mount Healthy. And so we have partnered with Mount Healthy, and the Ohio Department of Transportation is actually selling the project as one single project. However, on our side, we're actually going to have we're actually having two parts of the project done. So the first part of the project that will be happening on our side is that Greater Cincinnati Waterworks is coming in to replace the water main that's on Hamilton Avenue. So that will take place first, and that will that is supposed to basically pretty much fill up what is considered the construction season for 2022. While that's being done, the Mount Healthy side of Hamilton Avenue is going to be done. When ours is finished, then the construction company will then come back, and then in the next construction season, then do the replacement of the curbs and the road for for our portion of Hamilton Avenue. So they will be doing very much something that was similar to what we did on Galbraith Road, where we first replaced the water main, and then after that we did the road improvement.
well, I'm sorry. What would the roads look like? So they're gonna do the water lines, and I guess they're gonna do Mount Healthy's water line at the same time?
No, they're not. They're only replacing the water main in North College Hill.
Okay, so that's gonna be a huge project for
Correct.
2022. Let's hope that
Right,
the
they're-
weather holds out. So once that's completed, is that when they put that layer then of blacktop that we travel on then, or I forget?
Correct. Once they finish putting in the new water main, then they will come back, and then they will do the milling and grinding and then replacing. Because they're also going to replace, in addition to the road improvements, they're also replacing curbs and cutouts as well. So there's going to be a lot of work that will be done. I will also say that last Thursday, I had the privilege, Mr. Chair, of being at the Metro grant signing ceremony. And so part of the monies that the county is receiving as a result of the county sales tax revenue, a portion of that money is being returned directly to the communities for infrastructure improvement. And so if you, I don't know if council remembers, but we had shared a while back that we were going to have to pay about $590,000, and that was supposed to be part of our cash, but fortunately, the grant that we were awarded from Metro was over $550,000. So that's going to basically pay for the majority of the portion that we have to pay. So, so there's a lot of good things happening right now on that behalf. But the legislation that is in front of you, and I know that's probably what you wanted me to get to, is legislation that is basically the final piece that allows them to proceed forward. So there is a sense of urgency on this particular piece of legislation. So I would ask if council, and since all council here, if it would be able to be suspended and then passed, and then we can get it to ODOT so that they can go ahead and get started on their portion of letting the project.
Mr. President, I have a couple questions. So I guess I'm confused about the verbiage in here. It says the city agrees to assume and bear 100% of the entire cost of the improvements within the city limits. So that's confusing to me because then it says something about the 584,000. And I thought you just said that there's a grant. So does the grant not have to be mentioned?
No, the grant does not have to be mentioned. This is just saying that we are covering it. We're covering the portion that we're responsible for, but the grant is covering the majority of that. So it's not going to be.
So the net to the city is not the 584. It's more like.
It's like, I think.
50,000 or something.
No, it's actually more like 30. It's like 39, I believe.
Okay. So then another question I have is I know in a lot of locations where, because you just said Metro, so it struck my memory. A lot of locations where Metro's buses stop, they actually have a cement pad versus a blacktop pad, which is a huge issue right in front of Kroger. The divots from the buses or whatever sitting there. How do we make sure that in this process we get a concrete pad where that bus is going to sit, so we don't just reinvent that same, I'll call it a divot. Hell, it's almost a culvert at this point. It's so deep.
And quite frankly, it's not just there, it's also in front of Fifth Third Bank too. So I am definitely aware of what you're referring to. I can talk to ODOT to see how they plan on basically addressing that issue. I don't know right now whether or not there would just be a concrete pad with the asphalt around it or what, but I can ask them about it to see what they will do for it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I mean, I'm personally fine. I mean, it's kind of just has to be done, right? I think we're all pretty well on the trajectory of redoing Hamilton Avenue, so it's like, I think we should probably forward it to
I have a question.
Christian to put on the agenda next time. Go ahead.
I think they already fixed it, but when you're entering, North College Hill from the east on Galbraith, I think they fixed it. But right before you get to the Methodist church that dead ends into the street, what was causing that waving effect there?
Please tell, because I'm trying to
Okay,
picture.
you're
by
on
Clover
Galbraith Road, you've passed Daly, and when you get about 100 feet before you get to the Methodist church that dead ends, you're coming from, Clover, what caused that waviness there? Does anyone know? Okay, you're at Galbraith and Daly.
The
Okay.
road would kind of like, like,
Wavy.
almost like if a semi was.
Oh, well,
Waviness, it
so-
was literally waves. I
Okay.
mean, it's like, oh my God, why is
sorry,
this
yeah,
car-
you said dead end in Methodist Church, that's why I was
dead
very
ends
much
into
confused.
Clover Nook, yes.
Clover Nook dead
Right?
ends into
So
Galbraith.
100
That's what
feet
she's
before
saying.
you get to the church and
Life
you're
Springs.
driving
She's talking
west,
about on
what causes
Galbraith.
that waviness? That's just, oh my God.
It's gone now, but
Yeah.
it used to be there.
What, okay, was
know,
that,
if you're
which was there
coming up-
before we had the road improvement?
Right, so
Okay.
if you're coming up Galbraith from
Okay.
Daly,
From Daly.
going towards Clover Nook, on that side.
Yeah.
And it used to be just like because my son will say, Mom, you can avoid
Oh,
that.
okay.
Oh, that
So I think that is exactly
It
the
was
same
headed
thing
to
that
your
Ms.
house.
Zorb is talking about. It's just, what you just, it was a little bit of a different effect just because buses still do run over that portion of the street. And yes, people have to understand that heavier vehicles, they do wear and tear on the street. And
Okay.
so that is what could have caused that. There is also, I mean, the other thing, I have to be honest, of course, with asphalt and during the wintertime, it breaks up, right? And so that's why we create potholes, and those potholes have to be filled, and sometimes those potholes are the things that create some of those waves as well. So although I don't remember exactly which one, I do think it was probably resolved if I'm
It is,
understanding
yeah.
correctly. When
But
we
it-
had the street improved, so just like that,
It
that's the
was
same thing
similar
that.
to that, but it
Yeah, Ms.
just,
Zorb was talking about.
it was like a much wider path of waves. I mean, it went on for at
Yeah.
least 50 feet, and I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with this road right here? But-
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Anything else? Anybody see any reason I should just send it up? No? Nope. Alright. Cool. I'll email it to
Print,
Christian and Mike Graver
the print from that office, no. Not here,
today.
not here.
Oh no, there it is. Alright. Next up, economic development contract. So, as I mentioned earlier, we did appropriate a chunk of change to reach out to an economic developer, to hire a firm. So I'm assuming that's something we need to bid. Probably, right? Do an RFP.
Mr. President, what's the difference in what the economic developer will do versus the comprehensive plan?
Well, comprehensive plan is just that. It's a plan, right? It's kind of like a vision. It's like it encompasses not just business development or economic development. It encompasses things like residential development. It encompasses things like activities, recreation. Essentially, that's kind of like your plan for your entire city, your community moving forward, land use. Like every aspect of our government essentially gets kind of put up. But what they do is they just help create a plan and then they go. They leave, right? And then it's up to us to try to achieve that plan for the next, typically speaking, you're supposed to kind of update comprehensive plans like every 5 to 10 years kind of thing because the community changes. Therefore, your plan might change. But after they're done with this plan this year, they just kind of give us the plan they go. An economic developer, what they do is they just focus on economic development in your community, things like bringing businesses in and they don't leave, right? They usually, you can hire one that's a full-time employee, that's certainly an option in life, or you can just contract with firms. Most communities that are small communities, like ours, they tend to contract with firms because those firms, they work for multiple cities, but they have connections with developers, certain business communities, chamber of commerces and things like that. So their job is to not necessarily plan what kind of business as much as, make the connections happen, because, let's just say behind us, let's say the comprehensive plan or something suggests that we should really turn the property behind us and try to acquire certain parts of it and put a development in there. Well, that's great, but no one here really we don't all hang out in the same social circles as people who do residential development. That's why you hire economic development firms who can reach out to developers and things like that. They have those relationships, and to try to get those people to come in and look at the thing. So that's kind of what they do.
But they don't necessarily deal with real estate like the CIC does. I'm trying to distinguish them between.
Well, they can sometimes.
CIC and the Chamber of Commerce. Would they be kind of working hand in hand with those two groups?
Yeah, sure, they would a
Okay.
little bit. It's not, part of it, it's kind of like business and residential. So, basically, they're trying to develop your economy, right, as a city. Well, what's your economy as a city? It's business. And it's also residential too, right? So it's got one foot and one foot in the other. So you think about, these are people that have contacts to try to bring development here. So, it depends. So, they might suggest acquiring certain buildings. So again, the comprehensive plan is just this huge thing that happens once every decade or so.
Yeah.
And it's a plan, and then they go, right? And it's up to us to make that happen. An economic development firm is someone that helps us make that happen, because they have the connections to make that happen.
More efficiently, they're more focused in time-wise.
They're more
Okay.
focused, and then you contract with them on an ongoing basis, like year after year after year after year. So.
All right, thank you.
So, yeah, RFPs, I think tends to be something that should be drafted and sent out, right? So, and then we have to make sure, obviously, have you gotten any recommendations of any?
No, but when RFP has been drafted and has been sent out, I shouldn't say no. I have talked to a couple of firms that have expressed some interest. I've asked for the submissions of their proposals by the 25th of February. So at that particular point, we'll see what they are presenting and offering, and what the cost is going to be.
Okay. So we might get a few proposals by the 25th, so potentially like next meeting, we'd actually have some proposals.
Yes, we should.
Okay.
If
Does it
not,
make
then
sense?
we'll have to republish it, but I'm hoping that based on some of the contacts that I had, that we will get some feedback.
If we get a couple, maybe it makes sense to have them attend the next? To do a presentation or anything like that? at the next? Or you think
I
that's-
think what we would have to do is look at first what the packages entail,
Okay,
and after that point, we may have to, like if they're close, and depending on whether or not they're feasible, we might be able to move forward. Otherwise, we may have to bring some of them. I'm hoping, obviously, that it's not going to be to the degree that the comprehensive plan, contracts were. Those were much larger. This one we're looking at, we're not anticipating anything, nearly that large. So we'll have to see.
well, I guess we'll kind of have it on the agenda to review any proposals next month, and I guess we feel like a couple proposals look pretty close or good, then maybe in April take some presentations.
If,
Or in the next council meeting, I guess, you don't necessarily need to hog it here or anything like that. I mean, since the entire council's on this committee, there's no reason we couldn't use the subsequent council meeting or something like that as well.
the other thing, if I could just add to something that Ms. Blythe was asking about. So with the comprehensive plan, you know, as you pointed out, it should be updated, and ours hadn't been updated since 2008. But the other important part of that is that the comprehensive plan acts like a business plan for the city, and that is a document that many grantors want to see before granting us money, grant money, before awarding us grant money. And so if we don't have a plan, sometimes we can miss out on major grant opportunities just because we don't have that, especially if we're talking about, in many cases, you know, funding at maybe more of like a federal level or something like that, because federal funding usually requires, you know, that kind of documentation for us. So this is really that, which is why, you know, putting this plan together is extremely important. In addition to what Mr. Milanovac was saying, which is, you know, we've had a lot of changes over the past 13 years. So, you know, this will really help us as far as that comprehensive plan is concerned, putting together something that is very current and contemporary.
Mr. Chair, to Mr. Mosby, had we not received grants in the past because we did not have up-to-date economic plan, and if so, will we have opportunities to revisit some of those grants as they come back around?
I cannot say, you know, which grants have not been. I know that when I've talked to people at the county, I know that that was one of the first questions that they had asked us in certain cases. Now, we're still obviously getting our, you know, CDBG funding. But as far as other, you know, sometimes federal grants are made available to us. I have not had that experience yet personally, but having talked to some of the people at the county, I do know that if you're putting in a grant application and you don't, it would not necessarily be considered.
You know, I think it's one of those things too. It's just kind of like, you know, you don't hire a butcher to work on your car. You know, I think at the end of the day, the one thing we sometimes lose sight of, it's just like we're all here to make decisions, but at the same point in time, you know, like whether it's comprehensive plans or economic development, those are particular skill sets, and they require a lot of connections and things like that to do it. And it's just kind of like you can't sit around and hope that businesses are just going to move into your city or developers are going to notice you and put in new housing and stuff like that. I mean, it takes people who have experience and connections to pound the pavement and make those things happen. And I mean, we'd be kidding ourselves to suggest anybody in this room has that necessarily that skill set or those sets of connections in order to do that, right? So it's one of those scenarios where I think you got to spend some money to make some money. I think it's really important. So I'm excited because it's been a really long time since the city's actually invested in itself in terms of buying the talent and paying for people to hopefully make something happen outside of these doors, right? So I'm pretty excited that RFP's already out. I didn't know that. That's a happy surprise. Thank you for getting that out there. I'm really looking forward to seeing those proposals and hopefully finding the right fit and making some stuff happen.
Mr. President, we've been discussing that huge office building that's been vacant for quite some time on Galbraith. Would that be part of that economic development plan also? The one that's not selling, it's been on the market for a while.
You talking about the one by the graveyard?
No,
Across
No,
the
the
street
one-
from St. Margaret
what is
Mary.
formerly the Life Issues Institute. It's 1821 West Galbraith. It's across the
That
street
one,
from
yeah,
St.
would
Margaret
that-
Mary.
Well, I mean, Maybe, I don't know what the comprehensive plan folks are gonna do. I mean, the one thing we have to remember is just because you have a plan, you have goals, there's property owners, we can't kick them out just because we don't like them, right? They got constitutional property rights and things like that, so, we can have hopes and dreams for every building, but it's not necessarily a property owner that has it that's necessarily gonna succumb to our hopes and dreams either, so, theoretically, speaking, I would think that the comprehensive plan itself will address strategies and things like that for improving our business district, dealing with some blight in the community. I mean, they're gonna address all those things, right?
Yeah, I was just wondering, not the plan, but economic development, would that help with that building, or I understand about someone owns that building?
Well, I mean, it depends, right? I mean, theoretically speaking, they're gonna do anything and everything, right? But they can only do so much. Because the other thing we're gonna have to remember too is that with the price point that we have to pay an economic developer firm, they're not gonna be like a full-time employee of ours, right? They're gonna be someone that we're contracting with. I don't know how many hours we're gonna get out of it, so it's hard to really know until we see those proposals in terms of, what are we gonna actually get for the $50,000 roughly that we're putting up, so to speak, which we don't know. So I'm curious, so I guess we'll have to wait to see those. But I've certainly seen where economic developers have recommended trying to buy a property from somebody, you know what I mean, for one reason or another, to even mow it down or to do something with it. So certainly it's possible an economic developer might tell us or try to help us buy certain properties to do certain things with. But I know for a period of time we were buying some buildings occasionally, right? It was a long time ago. I feel like we haven't done that in a while.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I know that the CIC has bought,
Right.
certain properties from the port, which they are still doing. But as far as buildings, as you pointed out, I don't know the city purchasing any in recent years.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, at one point in time, wasn't the city owned the Italianette, right?
Correct.
They had that building, they sold that. I mean, that's an example. It was something before was there,
Cleaner, and then they purchased
and
that.
the city bought that, and then they end up selling it. So that's an example of how economic development works. But and the CIC is technically, I mean, that's kind of what most governments use to kind of acquire property and things like that, because they're not as restricted in terms of red tape as this body is. So, but yeah, that's an example of how an economic developer could work hand in hand with the CIC to purchase a building and sell it to some business that wants to move in or something like that. So that's one example from our past. That was a while ago, seems like now, but I guess it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, well, I mean,
It's about 2010 or so, 11 that they bought it, I think. And the Italianette moved in maybe 7 years ago, something like that.
maybe 15, so it was before that.
Seems like it's been there forever now. Well, great. Any other questions about that? RFPs are out, so hopefully we'll get some cool proposals next meeting. It'd be nice. All right, and then onward to the splash pad.
Okay. So, yes, so the splash pad is in the design stage at this particular point. There was some feedback that council gave and that the mayor also spoke about, had some concerns about, which is primarily having some kind of a bathroom facility. And so at the stage that they're basically where we're at right now, it's putting that in there, and perhaps the splash pad itself may have to be moved. So that's, at this particular point, that's kind of where we are right now, is to get the sign off.
I'm sorry, it has to be moved?
Yeah, it's gotta be, basically it's gotta be moved, pushed back
Same
north.
location,
I
different
thought you meant
area.
we need a new location, and I heart just sank to my stomach.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Shifted.
I apologize. No,
Shifted.
that's my fault.
Shifted.
Yes, shift, I should have used that word, I apologize.
Does that,
No,
So it's basically, and yes, Mr. Milanovac is right, it would have to be shifted to the north, going closer to Goodman Avenue.
Was,
But it will be in the same location.
was there previous plumbing there when it was, from the previous?
There was previous plumbing in the baseball building,
That's what I
but
was
let me,
gonna ask.
so to be clear though, the baseball building was on the east side of the park. And so if we're putting the splash pad more on the west side, closer to Simpson,
Oh,
there is going to have to be some access, that will be
Reroute.
dug out for that
Okay.
purpose.
probably
That's
call
not
it-
a big deal. I'm not but I'm just saying it's not, there is a water line. And that's one of the things that would have to be looked at to determine how much water pressure and all that.
probably call Roto-Rooter too. There's probably like a whole tree growing in there.
Which way did you say you needed to move the splash pad to get the water?
No, I was saying,
Move the splash pad north?
Like just a little schmidge.
North,
yeah,
okay.
like, I don't know. I don't, but let's just say 15 to 20 feet. And we move it.
If the black part of the table of the splash pad where it is now needs to be moved to the brown part of the table.
Yeah, closer to Galbraith.
Does that change your budget extensively?
Galbraith is north.
Well,
north.
so what we were talking about is how that will be accomplished, and so the immediate answer to your question is yes, but it may not affect the ultimate goal of initially, it may have to come in stages, so, perhaps the first stage would be just to make sure that we get the pad installed, and then after that, the second phase of that particular project would be then to erect or construct, this bathroom facility.
Okay.
Another question is, just a general question, would we need like male, female, and then, physically you know what I'm trying to say, would there?
Handicap.
Handicapped accessible.
So where,
Oh, okay, I didn't know if I can say handicap.
It will be handicap accessible, but it's not gonna be like a shower room.
Yeah,
So one of the things that we looked at, the cutback cost just to have one, if, yeah, it'll be a unisex restroom, but whomever is there, like at the park, will control the key. It wouldn't like be open. So if you need, because sometimes kids run in and out of the restrooms. Whomever's there, you need to go to them to get the key to get into the restroom.
and then the water will shut off at a
At a
certain
certain
time.
time.
Yeah, that way you don't have to be
Yes.
bothered with that, okay.
excuse me, does
Okay.
it, delay the time?
I'm sorry.
Does it delay the time?
What do you mean delay the time?
We said summer 2020, August,
Oh, it's still, yeah.
okay,
What?
not gonna mess with that.
Would there be like a auto lock security gate for that, or
For the.
to close the park, not the park, but to close the splash part off? Like.
Is it going to be fenced? Let's start there.
Yes, it will be
fenced.
fenced.
And it'll lock, automatically lock.
It'll lock automatically or lock, however it's done is gonna lock where, because obviously we have to keep the playground portion open. But I don't foresee having that particular area open past 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Right, you shouldn't be
So
open
I
that
think
late.
7 should
It's for-
probably be like
It's
the
for
cutoff.
kids, yeah.
Yeah, maybe 8.
I was
you know,
gonna say, it
sometimes
might
it's-
depend on the season, obviously. I mean,
sometimes it's
Is it
90
going to
probably
be
feel
lit?
like it doesn't get dark till like 10, you know what I mean? But
9.
Will there be lights in there? Because if there's not lights, then it should be dusk.
But
You might need security
won't need
lights
'em
on after
for,
dark, just to have it lit up.
for that particular portion, because the idea is to close the splash park at 8 o'clock. And generally in the summer hours, it doesn't get dark till
About
9:30.
9:30.
The playground should close at dusk.
Dusk.
I want a job at the splash park.
Me too.
So that's where I'm going with my question. So this key person, so we're going to have an employee at the splash park all
That's
day?
something that we wanted to discuss with council as well. I don't think that we should just have a splash park and not have anyone there. Maybe it can go through recreation, or whatever. I think if we're
Recreation.
investing in this, that it's something that we need to keep up and maintain and have someone there to manage it. So that would require an employee.
I'm thinking like
A seasonal summer employee.
Yeah, high school students.
It's just like the same with, Public Works, where they have that.
Just a seasonal person.
and you consider that if you charge a small fee to get in, that could compensate with paying that person there. Teenagers at every splash park I go to work there.
So I mean, I'm not currently, at the moment, I'm not for or against charging admission. But it kind of makes me nervous because I feel like, I mean, we talk a lot how our community has a lot of low-income families, and, you know, we're trying to give the community something to do, and I just would get nervous that, okay, we're gonna charge to give we're gonna provide the splash pad to give the youth something to do, but we're gonna charge, so like the at-risk youths that we want to keep busy and give them activities in the summer aren't gonna be able to get in. That's what kind of makes me nervous. So like, how much are we?
So let me ask you this, what ages are you talking about? Because this is just my perspective on it, and I don't want to come across as rude, negative, what have you.
Right.
But people take their kids anywhere else and pay. When we had a pool, they didn't get in the pool for free.
That's true.
You had to pay to get into the pool. Whether it was I've paid at the pool with my kids
Right.
when we first came here, like a daily rate.
Yeah.
So you can pay wherever you go daily. You can do a pass. And I think that sometimes we need to get out of that mindset that everything is for free. I mean, because I know for a fact people pay for what they want to pay for.
That's true.
So I'm not saying that it's like $5 when you come in. I've taken my kids when they were little to Winton Woods and only paid like
I was
$2 per kid
Right.
per whatever.
And even if you get like the annual pass for $20, you get into the splash pad for free, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
so I just
I
don't
see what
think
you're
that we
saying.
should keep.
I just wanted to voice my concerns. I don't.
And
I'm not, like I said, I personally right now I haven't heard anything that makes me like, oh,
And
yes,
I'll
we need
say
to
this.
charge, or, oh,
I'll
no,
say
we
this.
shouldn't
I've been talking back and forth, and this is a good place to bring this up. I'm sorry, Mr. Miller Novak, because I think it's relevant to this. I've been talking back and forth with someone from that just slips my mind that quick because I'm thinking the Urban League, but it's not the Urban League. It's what did I tell you?
Urban
Mr.
Fast
Morgan?
Forward.
Golly McWally. Anyway, they have a program where they are going to hire the kids. They want to form a relationship with the city, and then the city can employ that particular kid, and they'll pay for it. So,
That's sort of the same idea that Mary Jo had a couple of years ago about investing in our students. Let them wear T-shirts tell them who they are, NCH Public Works, teach them how to cut grass, let them do some of the, a minimal fee, pay them a little bit, you know.
we wouldn't have to pay anything with
Yeah,
this.
that's what I was gonna say, because I think the program that the mayor's talking about is a county program. What happens is they end up giving money, or actually, they literally pay the students.
That's
So
how they
basically,
fund
what
it.
we do is just, we keep track of their time. And
Yep.
but
Could
they're
could
the
we
ones
put that
actually
into
pay.
grass cutting then also? Because that would be a big burden, a financial burden off the city, and it would teach them how to take care of property, how to cut grass. A lot of adults, we've got a first-time home buyer on our street that's never owned a home, and he knocks on doors and says, how do I do this? How do I do that? Yeah, so he's working very hard at keeping his property up. So, but, I mean, Mary Jo had mentioned this kind of fell on deaf ears at the time, but this might be an opportune time to try to get that kind of worked in there, too.
I think it only, like, I remember Ms. Long saying something about hiring kids in the summer, but we wouldn't have to.
Mary Jo gave her that idea.
We wouldn't have to pay for anything. It would be paid through from them.
And
We
I-
just tell them who we want. You know, this kid, this is what we need. They'll go back and say to that kid, okay, this is a summer job. They just have to show up, and I guess we just have to regulate that they showed up and they came and they did it. And some of the things that they want to do are round. So,
When we do that, can we specify if they're like CPR trained or
Yeah.
mouth to mouth and all that?
you could for that position. Yeah, for
I
that position, but
think Ms. Dukestein
Sorry.
wants to.
Thank you. I was gonna say, that's a good program to do with our CIC, because, we talked about that, what is it, 3CD, or the, CD, what is it, the one that's in?
3CDC.
3CDC. They had the one with the trash collection, where they received a grant, and so now you see them everywhere. They're downtown, and they've got, their uniforms on, but they actually received a grant to clean up the community. It started way before the, reno of Finley Market, and they were all the way up there, all the way like before they did the train tracks thing, and that's a grant. They actually wear 3CDC uniforms, and they pay them out, so they kind of just control the flow and keep track of their time. But they got a whole bunch of employees, and it's economic development, so that's a really good thing to kind of get invested in and see if we can get the grant monies behind that.
I
to-
think you pointed out, though, as you pointed out, and that's what I was trying to say earlier. That's actually an excellent example of what I was talking about. So the program and the grant was awarded to 3CDC, which is in and of itself its own 501c3 nonprofit organization. So it's not, again, it's them administering the program. It's not the city directly being involved with it.
But if I can add, so I forgot about this. So it was on the precipice of you talking about the charge or not charge. First of all, I definitely agree with Mayor. We do need to charge. We need to get some revenue. People do pay what they want to pay. Maybe an incentive, like for good kids at school, to kind of, is just, hey, we'll give a couple of grants to a couple of families, or just scholarships to the water park to incentivize good grades, community health. And then if anybody has like some hardships, just apply. You know, there's an application out there, and then kind of go through that. But we have the child care centers in North College Hill that would be probably interested in bringing their kids over, memberships, even not even in North College Hill, but surrounding areas where our splash pad would be the closest one to them. So this is endless.
And that's where the fee is so important, is outlying communities that would want to come in.
Yep, especially during the day in the summertime, when other kids are maybe in other facilities. We've even got College Hill Recreation Center down there, working with them to kind of pair. So there's a lot of opportunities here, and we do not want to miss those
Right.
revenue dollars.
And I think too, as we like expand our recreation, I mean, like Winton Woods does, you get the annual pass and you get into all the, you know, fancy parks for, you know.
And it's
Yeah.
been the same price for years, man. I took my, I'm 22. Well, she's the same age as I am. She's 22. And then I have the younger ones. And I paid $1 when she was little. I pay $1 for them. You know, it's just a matter of,
Oh, yeah.
Just keep it at cheap, right? I mean, we can always raise the price or something like that. I mean, you probably want to err on the side of low and, but, yeah. I mean, something. I mean, it's just like, that helps a little bit. I mean, maybe it doesn't cover all the costs, but it helps with some kind of thing, and.
Yeah, that good grade thing
Yeah.
reminded me of like when you go to Family Video and for every A you had on your report card, you got a free video. So we can do that.
Back
Every
in the
A
day,
they got-
back in the day, you used to get a Big Mac if you got an A.
Yeah, and at Burger King you would get a Whopper for
Yeah.
if you had like so many more. Oh, my mom's the queen of cheap. Trust me, we went to all those things.
yep.
Can I ask one more question, though? I need to understand, Mr. Mosby, I heard you say something about phase 1 and phase 2. I'm really concerned about the splash park being open and not having a bathroom facility. So are you saying that the phase 2 part of the bathroom would possibly not make it this year for the opening of the splash pad?
No,
Or is that
yes,
not?
No, that's basically right. In other words, the splash pad itself would be open, and then the second part would be then to put in the.
What does that timing look like, though?
I don't know yet. I mean, we're in the early stages of it, so so we don't, I can't say at this particular.
We're waiting for them to get back with us at this point.
We're all caught up on our stuff, it's just waiting on.
So, I don't know, there's something looming in my head. Is there any way we could reach out to, like, the health department and make sure that we're not in violation of anything if we open the splash pad without any type of facilities associated with it? Can we just cross that bridge and make sure that we're not? Is that possible?
Sure. Is there anything else that y'all want us to look into? Because what I find is that more and more gets added as we go along. So if we have the list of what we want, what we need, so we can stop sounding redundant whenever I talk to them and it's something else on the list. So if we need to check out the health department or whomever else, that would be nice to know tonight. Because
I
I
don't-
had to
I mean,
make
I-
the,
We were gonna install it without the restrooms. I thought we were
Right.
literally gonna get the restrooms installed first.
Well, yeah, I mean, the restroom, if we put the restroom in, as you are talking about, that comes first, that is a very complicated, process. Because obviously lines have to be installed, water, and then there's security, as the mayor said. So that would be a much more cumbersome process. And obviously it's gonna add to the cost. So, in short, we have, materials, time, right, and basically, and resources, meaning money. So it depends on what we want to achieve. If we want to achieve an opening date by August, we have to determine if that is a fixed date, then that means the other two are basically up for grabs. If we want it to be done, we're already at February now, we're gonna have to push forward. That probably means we need more money.
The question is
So,
question is too, with both of them being water systems, they still have to be separate of each other because one is a Board of Health type restroom and the other is, so what I'm trying to say is you won't be doing both water lines at the same time, not connected, but wouldn't it be proper to be doing both water lines
well,
at this,
since it's infrastructure,
together,
it probably
since it's-
would be done.
I mean,
Right.
yeah.
It probably would be,
Yeah.
because you'd have a toilet there, and then, of course, you'd have a sink. So, yes, those water lines would be installed at the same time that the lines for now, they would be different, as you pointed
they
out.
have to be,
Yeah, because the one water is kind of a recirculating water, and the other water
And then it
would
would be
would have to be sanitary
chlorinated
water that would have
also.
to.
Would it be chlorinated? the
Not
splash pad
necessarily,
water?
that's the other thing, because you either have,
Chlorination.
right, so you either have the water that is treated, or we use what you and I would call it's just the regular water that comes in from the water from, Greater Cincinnati Water
Supply
Works, and
line.
then and then it just drains out.
It'd be interesting to see what the city does, but you talk to them all the time anyway, though.
So
How theirs
but the
are
point that I'm
'cause there's
making is
one
if we
across
wanna make
from-
it to August,
Mm-hmm.
and so our time is narrowing.
Yeah.
Means
I mean,
I think I'd rather have it done correctly
Then have it
and
done
Board of
correctly.
Health wise, if we need to wait until that's just my opinion. If we need to wait till 2023, that's fine, but it looks like you wanna get the Board of Health and the restroom stuff lined up.
well, the Board of Health is gonna have to come out anyway, if I'm not mistaken, once it's completed.
well,
And
I
So-
think
Yeah,
we're
Nicholls.
inventing a
Not-
problem, like if, like,
we are.
we don't know that the Board of Health has any problem with opening the splash park without a bathroom. So we're talking about ironing out a problem that probably doesn't exist. I mean, the only law that I'm familiar with that you have to have a bathroom is a place that has like food that you serve inside. You're not allowed to have an eat-in restaurant without a public restroom is the only mandatory restroom law that I'm not saying that I could be wrong. I mean, it's not like I've researched bathroom requirements extensively, but I'm willing to wager that no one else here has either. So we don't really know that it's a problem. The question we're asking is for the mayor to, and the administration to just make sure that it's okay to open. I mean, my feeling is we're talking about opening in August. Yeah, it'd be great to have 100% of it done when it opens, but at the same point in time, if our goal is August, the reality is it's probably gonna fall behind a couple weeks. It might be late August. You're probably just like allowing people to enjoy this thing for like a month before fall comes, and we're probably closing it back down anyways. I mean, if we really wanted to and we're that concerned about having a restroom, we could always like rent a porta-john kind of thing or some kind of setup. So there is a restroom there if people need to use it, because, you know, obviously kids get wet, they get cold, they're gonna wanna pee. I mean, let's just be honest. So, I mean, it's just, you know, we all know that. Everybody jokes about kids peeing in the pool, they get wet, they pee. So, I mean, it wouldn't be bad to have like maybe a porta-john there or something like that. I mean, you know, for me, it's just like, you know, for any married couple who discussed having kids before they had kids, you could probably find as many reasons to talk yourself out of doing it when you choose to do it than you do it, right? I mean, there's as many reasons we could talk ourselves out of like having a splash park or to like get this thing done as we could to think about it. It's just like, you know, for me, I think this is a pattern we have where we want to do something, and then when we get on the precipice of actually accomplishing something, we always find ways to talk ourselves out of it.
Here's
I
the
had a-
thing.
I don't think
Go
that's
ahead.
what's going on.
Just one more point, when we were talking about the chlorine and the recirculating water, well, we already know what kids will do when they're at the splash pad. I don't need to say that out loud, so we should consider. No, the other word that starts with P.
The other P.
The other word that starts with U, I'm sorry, starts with U.
Okay.
So we should take that in consideration about the circulating and the chlorine, you
Well,
know, to
I'm
keep
sure
it
that's
Well, I-
sanitary.
Yeah, I'm sure that is.
Yes.
yeah.
Were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say, I mean, like with what Matt was saying with the health, you know, a lot of times we get to the precipice of something. I feel like it's a lot of times the opposite. I mean, just look at the salary ordinance. We like dove into that and it wasn't really set up, and now we're like really working hard to like make sure it's set up right. Where if we just take our time, I mean, people in our culture are gonna complain about a crack in the sidewalk. It's fine. Like, I'm not really that worried if people are gonna sit there and complain that it's not open in August, because we're gonna do it right. I don't
that's
want
how
to
I
get
feel.
2 years down the road and have somebody come and sue us because, oh, there was this small little thing that we missed. And
Violation.
not because nobody's doing their job correctly. I know that everybody's doing their job correctly. But I still think that it's worth talking about this kind of stuff and taking our time and making sure it's done right, instead of just saying like, oh man, we really want to make sure everybody's getting the most use out of this at the end of summer for 1 month. I'd much rather have 2 years down the road us not being like, what did we do? Wow, that was stupid, you know, than 1 month of fun, you know? I don't know. That's how I
What's
see
that
it.
saying?
may be
Measure
putting-
twice, cut once, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Arias, were
that
you gonna say
word?
That's
something?
it.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I may be
Measure
putting
twice.
words in
once.
Matt's mouth with this, but this is my perspective. I think we are having the absolute right conversation. And last time we talked about, we didn't have bathrooms in there at all. And then now we're working towards bathrooms. And so I'm not debating the bathroom effort, but right is getting the community excited about it. And the bathrooms will come. And I'll give you 2 examples. And I have little people. We love splash parks. We drive everywhere for them.
Yeah.
One is the one downtown. Before they got the bathrooms set up, they had porta potties lined up at the bottom. I think it's the right conversation to make sure that we're in compliance with the health department. And also Winton Woods, at one point something was going on. A main line had
Oh,
broke
yeah.
in their
Oh, yeah.
bathroom, like from the lake or something, and it was like they had all kind of issues.
Yeah.
And they had a row of porta potties, and that water park was still open.
Yeah.
So I don't personally, even as a mom, have an issue. First of all, I'm gonna take my kids to the bathroom before, but if the community needs an option, we can look into those to kind of just get them excited. And that is part of like just a marketing strategy to kind of incentivize for the next season when we do have the bathroom. So that's just my 2 cents. I want to add that on there. I will be happy to look up and make contacts with maybe Winton Woods to talk to them about what they did in the interim when their bathrooms weren't down. But I for sure remember that concession was open. and the water park was still open.
I don't disagree. I am excited. I hope it gets to be open for a month because I agree. I think that would be so cool. And we could also get some input of like, hey, this worked, this didn't, and maybe we have time to change it. I just don't want to get so far into it to where we realize that there's an issue, but it's already done.
And I think for me, I don't want to keep creating issues. Because when, the longer we sit and say, well, let's hold on this, then we're gonna say, oh, I don't like that awning over there. It should have been over there. Or why is that tree there? You have to, I don't want to use the word take chances, but we're dealing with professionals. JMA, I mean,
Yeah.
sat down and they say, bam, this, that. They're not gonna even put their stamp on something that the Board of Health wouldn't approve.
I was gonna say, you kinda took the words out of my mouth. I
So-
mean, like, these are engineers that this is what they do, right? It's like, what problem are we going to foresee on this public body that engineers who build splash parks for a living aren't gonna recognize? I mean, again, you can talk yourself out of anything. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like, again, like, it's like hiring a butcher to work on your car. Like, I could sit there and watch the guy that I pay to, like, fix the car. I'm not gonna notice anything he does wrong, right? I mean, we wouldn't be able to catch that. The reality is, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, these splash parks technically are, like, you just pick, like, a handful of designs, right? It's not like they're custom made necessarily anyways. They kind of have like certain equipment and then you kind of like pick them out, right? Kind of like playground equipment essentially, right? I mean, that's
give
kind of
you
what we're getting, like a
examples.
package that's pre-arranged essentially.
They give you examples of what'll fit in that square footage, and you can say, oh, we would like this, or, you know, this will go there, why, or whatever, but for me, I just don't wanna, every time we come back and we talk about it, we're gonna add something different and say, well, then it appears like, okay, I want it done right as well. I appreciate what you said, but I also don't wanna get in the same predicament, because I've seen it happen before, where we just go on and on and on and on and on, and on and on and on and on and on, and every time it's something different or something new. That's why I asked the question I did. What else?
So I'm just gonna chime in here, so, because I feel like, again, I'm always the rotten egg in the room. Just because I brought up bathrooms, when this splash pad was first talked about, I don't ever recall hearing that there wasn't a bathroom. So I assumed there was a bathroom. Forgive my assumption. So I guess when I bring it up again, I'm not trying to delay any project. I think, even if it's not a health code requirement, I think it's a common courtesy to have a restroom on the facility for the parents that bring their kids there, if nothing else, because they're probably not gonna walk into the water to go pee.
Especially if they're
Right.
paying.
So if I may-
Hang on, please let me finish. So, the other question that came to my mind, because you said, Mayor Nicholls, what other questions might come up? Perhaps if you're talking to the Board of Health, see if there's any requirement. If it's not even required to have a bathroom, then I'm certain the quantity is not a requirement. But just make sure that we have the right amount of bathrooms there also. Thank you.
So if I could, Ms. Zorb, I wasn't aware that there wasn't a bathroom until I met with them. So, when I first came back and said that, and then.
So you had the same assumption I did. So thank you.
Exactly. And so,
Perfect.
when we had the conversation here, and Ms. Anderson said I can't remember what you said, but she said something about the restrooms. So that's when we went back. What do we need? I think it was even brought up that the cost that we would need, Mr. Mosby said it this evening. We would need, I just assumed, that when you're doing this, you include it in there, but obviously you don't. Or you,
And that's a perfect example. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you're fine.
But that's just like a perfect example of what I was saying. You know, you want it done right. And like Mary Jo said, I I personally am not sitting here with an agenda of like trying to slow things down, but like I have a lot of questions in my head. I know that there are things that like slip from my mind. So a lot of times when I'm asking or when I'm requesting things, it's not because I don't trust that you guys are doing it. It's more that it's like, well, I don't know if this is how it's done. Does the Board of Health check this automatically? I honestly don't know. So, but yeah, I appreciate what you're saying too. And yeah, I mean, I want things done right the first time, especially with how long we've gone without something fun in North Collegeville. I want it done right.
I wanted to just add a comment. I don't think that what we're doing is trying to back out of it. What we're considered counsel or whoever, we're considered the customer. So for us to get together like we're doing now, we're kind of brainstorming. We're not thinking of things that are bad. But you know how when you brainstorm, somebody brings something up that you never thought about before? So to me, if like we're doing tonight, we're brainstorming, maybe one might think of something we want that we totally forgot, but I think it's best to know what we want before they break ground. And brainstorming is perfect. It just brings people and ideas together. Like one thought that crossed my mind is, of course, they know what they're doing, is seating options for parents too.
We already talked.
Yep,
That's in
yeah,
there.
so that's it. But see, there's nothing negative about this. This is brainstorming. So when you're talking to the contractor, we've thought of everything that we might want. And as another note, the funny part is we're a complete community, but the one that's across from Aiken is so cute. It only has one great big 10-foot tall Y. That's it. There's no,
I haven't seen.
yeah, if you drive by there, it's just one 10-foot tall Y that sprays water out. But they don't really have any little animals huddled around. But it's at a park. It's not for a complete community like ours is. But yeah, this is just what you call brainstorming. We do it at work all the time. There's nothing negative about it. It's positive because people
We
are
do that
bouncing,
at, we
right,
do that at
bouncing
work often.
ideas off their
I do it at
Chair.
work
heads. So
often.
it's not that we're trying to stop the progress of this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Madam President, Mayor, who are you?
I don't know.
So, is there such a beast of an itemized or a on-paper discussion of what you are all looking at and discussing so that we could have a better picture, get a better grip of what is happening with that? I mean, I know
like a
it won't be
design.
a commitment, but
When
it
you-
would just,
When you ask for, I do have a printout in here of the last thing they gave me. But
would
we
that
have,
be beneficial for us to, or,
I think so. But
it doesn't, no, it wouldn't, probably.
Okay.
You're welcome to see it, but it does not have, like, for instance, the bathroom that we talked about. It does not have where the shade is. It just gives the
and that would make sense because it was just discussed here tonight, so.
But everything that we discussed was discussed tonight, was discussed with JMA.
Yes.
The only difference is the health department. So we discussed with them seating, the grass area, the, splash park area, we discussed.
Seating arrangements for parents.
For parents, we took all of that into consideration. I've been a parent.
Yeah,
I've taken my kid to splash parks.
Absolutely.
And a bathroom is important, but it's also important for the grandmother and the mother who does not like the sun to be able to go have somewhere to sit, to view the splash park. We talked about the safety from the parking lot to the splash. What would be cut? How would you get in? Why would you go this way? So it's nothing that we just said, oh, we just want the splash park and blah, blah, blah. We talked about,
Certainly.
because like I said, I look at it from the perspective that I've been a mother. I've taken my kids to splash parks when they were younger. So what was comfortable for me? If I needed to bring in a chair,
And a stroller,
She-
and a
I
diaper
mean,
bag.
everyone who's been a mother, maybe not, whatever, I'm sure you pack lunch. I was good about packing snacks. So is there gonna be a table where someone can, like the little iron tables, they're not really big,
Right.
and they can sit down and have lunch. with the,
Garbage cans.
yeah,
Of course.
yeah. We talked about all of that.
Yeah, but if they're in the business of doing splash pads, then they know exactly.
Yeah, they're in the business of design, but the other stuff like the garbage cans, they can send us to who we need to go for the tables. But they have to look at the idea,
The cute stuff.
you know, what's gonna be functionable for that area. So we've talked about everything.
So the only thing we need to move forward on then is the Board of Health.
Mm-hmm. And you're welcome to see the design that they gave me. What it does is two different ones. One is just the whole outlay, it's black and white, actual, footage, a camera view. The other is a sketch that they did to show where the splash part, and that was the last meeting we had where it was in an exact spot, but now they need to give us one where it's shifted and where the bathroom room, you know. So we're in the idea of what does the building look like that the person would be in, where the bathrooms would be located.
Well, maybe can you just maybe email that to us?
Sure, or you want us to bring it to the next meeting, or
I think the next meeting works for me.
whatever you prefer?
I mean, the next finance meeting?
Should it be recreation?
Shouldn't it be in recreation? We discussed two items that could be in recreation, and we haven't mentioned
I was saying
$1
it
amount.
Because it was on your agenda and we're talking about it here.
I understand that, yeah, right.
He wants to take the recreation, whatever you would prefer us to do.
I mean, we
I
can
don't
use
care.
her committee. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care.
It's all on the same night.
You want yours, so we'll just email it.
I do, I would prefer the
But
email
I was
also.
gonna say, I'd like the email, just so I could check it out. I'm just curious. I'm excited, so I'd like to see it,
Okay.
what we got going.
Why don't we get how about,
Oh, are you talking about the design?
Yes.
No, you have to take a picture of that. That's not in my email. It's
Can-
something that they brought.
can a picture
So-
be taken and emailed?
I can go get it and y'all can take
Yeah,
it.
just bring it in.
I had another,
she's got
Yeah,
like,
if you want, I can
Since-
add it to my agenda. I
I
don't
had
really care.
another question. Since we were in the
It doesn't matter.
it
It's all
doesn't matter,
finance
cause it's gonna
meeting,
cost money, so.
Mr.
eventually-
Wald
We
mentioned
might not have
something
talked
about
the exact
vehicle
dollar
leasing.
amount, But
Years.
Was that meant for
we
this
will
meeting?
eventually.
Mr. Wald mentioned something about vehicle leasing. Was that supposed to be in the finance meeting?
Yes.
Oh, no, wait, because if we get this.
Mr. Wald?
Yes,
You mentioned something about vehicle leasing. Was that supposed to be in this meeting tonight?
I had emailed Mr. Mosby about that, and he did have some information for us about that.
Okay. I just saw an email before I left.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he had an update ready. But so every time that we've put the splash pad in City Community Development and Recreation, I've had to pass it to you because stuff comes up about money. And either the finance director's not here or
Yeah.
something. So that's why it got passed to you originally, because I was like, I don't know.
I think it's fine where it is.
Yeah,
I know that we
I
didn't
think so
talk
too.
about the money of it today, but eventually there will be
Eventually
a
we
price
will,
tag
and-
that's attached to it.
Exactly, and I won't know how to answer those
It's
questions.
kind of an
and
inevitability,
with
right?
her being here, it's really helpful. Anyway.
Unless that document she's brought in says free.
That would be really nice.
Eh.
This is the same thing. This is the same thing. So, this is the current view. This is the splash pad that needs to shift. This is the parking. This is the entrance, because we don't want, so now what they're trying to formulate is the entrance of how you can get through here. But we don't want people
So where's Simpson over there?
Is this playground?
playground.
Playground here.
This, on this area,
Then this is the alley. Sorry.
yeah, over here, it'll be like awning, some trees. It'll be, tables where you can sit,
Like a picnic area,
yeah,
kinda.
for the splash park.
Mm-hmm.
This is the play area, so obviously there'll be other seating over here. The equipment is already going in. So what we're trying to do is see where the building goes. If it goes here, that mean that person who's manning this
Mm-hmm.
can still maintain this, and you go to the bathroom, whatever, you know?
Mhm.
So if you put it back here, then you're gonna, it takes the visual eye away from this.
Right,
So I would like it in this area.
Yeah.
that makes a lot of
I would like
sense.
it in that area, so.
One, two, I mean,
And then, you know, just my opinion, I think this entrance should be there, but if you wanna go to the splash park, you gotta come around here,
Mhm.
or come up through here. You shouldn't be able,
I-
I mean, you could come through there and come around the building if you're already here playing,
Mhm.
because this obviously will be open.
And don't you think that's a plus? I think that's a
I
plus.
do.
Okay,
I mean,
Yeah, you wanna control traffic,
You want, right,
Yes,
so that's the
right.
idea, if you wanna get into the splash park,
especially if we're charging anything, right? Even if it's $1, right? You wanna be able to
Way back
control
here.
traffic.
then, you know, who's gonna regulate, okay, you can't go in there, so even if it's here, they move the entrance here, you can go through, I used to go to Omelette or Otter or something down Western here, on the west side of town. It was a straight shot, you had to go through the building in order to step into the,
the pool area, the
so
wet
like
area.
this is the building and the pool is back here. You couldn't get in there for nothing, the display area was even on the outside. So this is display area, so if the building goes here, if you notice, they put parking on both sides. You can enter the parking lot off the building.
Thank you for that.
Well, this has been a long one. Cool, thanks for showing us that.
Are y'all doing any pictures?
No,
Uh,
gonna say, yeah.
Mr. Mosby, I know, said he had an update on something from Misty Wald. Did you have that, Mr. Mosby?
So may I? I'm freezing.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
I had a question about the leasing of the vehicles. I asked specific questions about how many did we plan to lease, how many did we put in the budget to lease, what departments, and how many each department will get.
Oh, certainly. Two are for the police department, and I was working with John out of John Jones. However, the cars are going so fast that they sold them before we even had a chance. So what the police department did is through the government website, we have ordered 2 vehicles. It will be 8 to 12 months before we see them. So at that point, then the leasing will begin. So, and then I do know for code enforcement, they do have 1 electrical vehicle, but we have not yet signed the lease on that.
So, yeah, because I saw the code enforcement going around in this little Jeep, and I'm
Yes.
thinking, I don't know why we need to replace that car. So the other question I have, especially with the police vehicles, I know that they need to be dressed. I know that they need the lights and the emblems, and do we know what that costs?
I believe that is between $8,000 and $10,000 as of today.
And that's for 2 vehicles,
No, that's per vehicle.
per vehicle. Good gravy, okay.
And of course, unfortunately, with inflation and everybody wanting vehicles, they just, it just keeps going up the longer we wait.
And then what happens when that lease is up?
We have the option to buy that for $1,
For
or we can turn
$1.
it back in.
And what are the possibilities of us doing that?
We can also sell the vehicle, and then the money that we receive, the proceeds that we get from that are then used to lease a new vehicle.
Okay, and I know that the police department puts, and it's not just ours, it's every police department, puts tons of miles on those vehicles. So what's the value of, the projected value of a vehicle after, well, we're looking at a year now before we even get one.
Right.
So the lease
It's
is
not
only 3
it's not so
years.
much the mileage, because, we're 2 square miles. It's not, while they do put miles on the car, it's not like like a car you would have at home, all right? So it's
I tell
not
you,
so
they
much
put
the
more on theirs
mileage.
than I put on mine, that's the only car I've got.
It's not so much the mileage, but it is the use, indeed. And as you know, those cars would be more apt to have to hit high speeds very quickly. So they do put wear and tear absolutely on the engine and the transmission and things like that.
And in what kind of vehicle are they looking at to lease?
The Ford Explorer,
The Ford? And so the code enforcement and the police department are the only two areas that you're looking at leasing cars
Yes, for this year, yes.
for this year. What about next year?
Well, the plan for the police department is to be able to have them on a rotating basis. So we would lease, and then we would then get the next year, we would also do another lease, so that we're leasing on basically a 3 or a 4 year cycle.
So how is that going to look? We've got this extra money for COVID. How is that going to look in 3 years when we no longer have that extra money from COVID?
Well, Mr. Wald, this has nothing to do with COVID money, number one. Number two, we have to put out money when we have to get repairs done for the cars. That is what has been costing us a lot of money. So the advantage of being able to lease these vehicles is that you would have a more even expense over the life of the vehicle. So instead of us paying, $2,500 or $3,000 for a transmission, and then all of a sudden we've got to pay, $7,000 for, and those are of course amounts that you have to put out at one time. This way, because these cars are being leased, once they're used, we turn around, sell it. The proceeds that we get back from it are used to put into the next lease. And so then that way, like I said, the expense is evened out and it becomes much more stable.
Now, are you looking at electric vehicles?
Not right now for the police. The only electric vehicle that we're looking at this particular point is the one for code enforcement.
Okay, and please bear with me. So if that electric vehicle does come to fruition, does that open the door for us for grant money or some kind of, what is the?
Well, it certainly could, because if we're showing, that's a very good question. I appreciate that, because if we're showing that we're attempting to be more environmentally conscious, companies like Duke Energy and certain grants that we might even be able to get through organizations like We Thrive, those types of organizations do look favorably if we're trying to, in essence, go green. So it would actually, yes, it would help us a lot.
Okay, I think that's all I have at this time. So, but no other, I thought I saw in the budget there was another department, but I don't have that part of the budget with me.
No, so to be very clear, and of course, I mean, just for everybody's information, right, the departments that have the vehicles are the police, fire, and Public Works. Public Works did have money in there because we were talking about purchasing trucks, but we weren't talking about necessarily purchasing electric trucks.
Okay.
We may be considering an electric vehicle there, but it hasn't been anything that has been considered or confirmed. What we're just, at this particular point, what we want to do is make sure that we're replacing, a couple of the older trucks.
And I'm glad you brought that up. What was the last truck that we bought for Public Works?
I don't remember.
Me either.
To be honest, I don't remember.
Okay, and
Because we haven't purchased a truck since I've been here.
okay, because I thought I saw a new truck driving around in the city. Maybe it was privately owned.
No, I think, who said that? Who said that? Yes. So Ms. Blythe, you may have seen a fire truck. You may have seen a truck that the fire
Oh,
department.
no, I saw a red truck, and I already talked to Brian about that. Yeah, and that was a huge deal. And I'm also passing out, because I have more questions about a budget that's already been passed, but I just need to get these, I've asked you these questions before, Ron. Just not sure what to do with the answers. So the first page you look at, you'll see that it's a $60,000 line and a $153,000 line.
Ms. Dewald, keep in mind that you're not on the microphone as you're starting this part.
Mr. Mosby, I'm sorry, Mr. Mosby, can we recap just a bit? You said the three departments that have vehicles are public works, police and fire. What was the third one?
Right, so in other words, police, fire, public works.
I'm just
Well,
asking for the
And
notes.
code enforcement.
I'm just asking for the, oh, okay, thank you. I was asking for the notes.
So we had mentioned this, and this won't be a foreign conversation to you at all. On the line item, the $60,000 one, in 2021, we took 17,000 out for, it's not a dirty word anymore, the street sweeper. But we have proposed $65,000 for 2022, but we don't know what that's for. Now, I know you said that each line item was given a 2% increase. And I don't know how to deal with that, but I'm just saying, then on $150,000, that was to pay for the majority of the street sweeper. And yet, we've got that line item with a 2% increase in the 2022 proposed. Of course, it's no longer proposed, we passed it. So, that's $218,000. And at the time, I had asked when there was an increase, so turn the page. There was, in 2021, $25,000 for expenses. 2022 has $60,000 in it, and we were told that that was because of the new code enforcement. And I had asked, are we bringing somebody else in? Are they extra hours? The answer was kind of not clear. But when we did discuss it at the last council meeting, I believe, $60,000 was kind of going to sit in reserve for the new code enforcement officer, so that if the fire department's funding was depleted, we would use this. And then you also said that that was part of the postage and stamps and envelopes, but we've got $15,000 proposed in 2022 for that very same thing. So I find other things in the budget that stymie me, but because these are the two most recent that things have been talked about, that's why I'm bringing them up. So I don't know if you can answer them.
So I will address the question first about the street levy. To be clear, the street levy is a restricted fund. It can only be used for street purposes.
Exactly.
The equipment capital line, as you pointed out, although it's slightly more than 2%, we did put 5,000 in there. 2% would have been, I think, 1,200. So there was perhaps 3,800 more that was put into that particular line. I do believe that when we had the discussion about the street fund capital, when you asked me about the $153,000, as I did mention to you that while we did not have a large item expenditure that was planned, I did mention to you, I believe that we were plan on purchasing 2 trucks, which that has not changed. Now, will it cost $153,000? Probably not, but the money is restricted to using for the street, so it can't be used for anything else.
And that's why it bothers me, because when it was asked of this council by several people here on council, what is new in here that we don't know about? And I think this is one of those items that should have been brought up. What is new? Well, we're looking at buying 2 trucks, so we're going to put that in this line item, and I don't know how to explain this without sounding like I'm upset. I'm just extremely curious. I'm upset over the fact that this was passed, and we're not really sure where everything is and what it's used for. Does that make any kind of sense at all? I'm sure it does.
If I may be honest and
Absolutely.
transparent, I have a bit of difficulty with it. You are the council and you are responsible for passing the budget, and this document that you have passed is law.
I'm not arguing that. I
no,
think
well,
I even said,
Right. but
we've
what- but
already
let me
passed
finish
this.
now. So what I'm saying is, then what you're telling me in this is what we're authorized to spend and what we're authorized to do and accomplish based on the objectives that council sets. We have three primary functions in our city: police, fire, and public works, and I need to make sure that those are operating and staying functional. This document gives me the ability to do that. So, no, I don't think, we could, yes, I mean, I don't have no problem, I mean, and I've said this to you before. I don't have a problem sharing with anyone what we intend on doing, but again, you know, unless we're gonna go down, as you just pointed out, line item by line item, which I do not think is efficacious for a council, because you all are basically, you're governors, you're governing, that's it. We are supposed to be administering, and that's what my goal is. So, no, I may not say every single thing, but I think that the majority of people on council here have said, hey, if I've had a question and I called you up, you're more than willing to answer it, which I am. So, no, I can't, we can't spend, I don't believe I don't believe that it's worthwhile for us to spend a couple of hours every time trying to explain certain things within the budget. I do think that it is effective for us to be able to carry out the charge that you've given us. Now, I'm gonna jump to the second one that you were talking about, which is on code enforcement. Yes, at the time that we were discussing the budget, I made that pretty clear. And why? Because council said, one of the things that council said was, well, perhaps we need a different, or perhaps we need more code enforcement. Now, if you remember, all we had was one person that was working part-time, right? So I said, yes, then if we're gonna do that, we need to put more money in the budget, which is what was done. Now we have a person who we have basically devoted to, 30 some hours a week for code enforcement. That is part of that money. So I don't see where any of that is against kind of the charge of council. If we want to improve our code enforcement, we are going to have to put more resources toward it, which I believe that we have through what we've done.
I back to what you were first saying about the going line item by line item. I don't think that's what Misty Wood meant when she was saying the big changes. Like, for instance, I really, really, really appreciate that money was put in for city community development. But I would have never known that money was put in there unless I specifically asked, what is this line item? And so I think it's not that we want to go line item by line item and know exactly what you're spending each money on. But just for future reference for when the next budget comes out, if we can have just a summary of hey, we added this line item, or hey, we increased this by, what seems to be a lot, and here's why we might be doing that, or here's what we plan. Not so that we can govern you and micromanage and make sure you're doing everything exactly how we want you to, but more because we don't know what we don't know. And I can't, you're right, when I message you or when I call you, you answer my questions. But if I don't know what to ask, or if I don't know to ask about the money for community development, then I won't know it's there. And I wouldn't know that we can spend it on the new resident papers, And I'm glad that we can do that, but I wouldn't have even known about that money unless I'd asked that.
No, so I appreciate that, and that's what I'm saying. So this becomes a partnership. It does.
Right.
I mean, I have to hear from you about what things that you are concerned about. So in this particular instance, and I'm only using this hypothetically, but let's just say, Mr. Wald, that you are really concerned about the street levy. Okay, then, you're absolutely correct. When the street levy comes up, and as I'm working with the chair of the finance committee, as we're preparing the budget together, I can highlight those things when I make the presentation. I don't know if you all remember this, but I did make a presentation earlier, and at that time, I was actually trying to kind of highlight, at that time, some of the things that were added.
Right.
Some of you may remember certain things. For example, Mr. Milanovak had even asked, he said, well, are we going to have money in there for economic development? So we were able to incorporate that in there. But then there was, a question was asked about what are we going to do about improving the council space? And that's where I said we already had money that was budgeted in there for that. So no, I honestly do not have a problem at all being accountable and being able to communicate with council. I will say, though, in fairness, it has to work both ways. If there are things that you are passionate about or you want to know, I just need to know that. If I know that, then I can direct, some of my highlights in that case, or during the year, throughout the year. If you come in and you say, hey, I need to know more about this particular line item, myself, and now that we have Ms. Vanderberg here, we can absolutely do that. So that's the thing that I'm trying to make clear. I do want that communication to be able to work in that way. So I don't want to try to assume that I know what you wanted to ask about. So that's why I don't in that sense. But at the same time, you let me know and I'll make sure that, we cover that and we address it.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, I hear you saying, you would like a list of, you added $50,000 to recreation.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So the thing that I know that has happened since this year on this budget, Mr. Mosby, is that there was a discussion in this council. I don't remember if it happened in committee or if it happened in the actual council meeting when we were trying to do the budget, because it all runs together, to be
Right.
honest. And I don't want to misspeak, but I remember we asked for big bucket items. And I think to just establish a relationship of trust and just, that's just it, just a relationship of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that would be, hey, here are the list of buckets where we added this, these are the changes that we're gonna make. It to me, and jump in there, or anyone else who has an opinion, it takes away people going through line by line by line by line by line, trying to decipher where the changes are if you already bring them up front. Now, maybe others will go back through and siphon through, and then those can be direct emails. But a list of big buckets, I know would really help me.
I'd agree.
I don't have a problem with any of that, but this is an issue that I see is when I sat here, when I sat there, when I sat there, they've gone through the budget line by line. Council has changed and it's always gone line by line. Now, no council has directly said we would like, but this is just my opinion. I could be wrong, prove me wrong. I don't even think if we gave that, which we will, that it would stop the line by line. Because I've seen it here, there, here. It's just been a continual thing over the past, 14 years?
And Tracy, it's longer than that. When I
Yeah.
sat on council in the 90s, we had finance meeting after finance meeting and went line by line by line. So I'm still accustomed to that, and I think, because I know when I balance my checkbook, I go line by line by line. Why would this be any different? This is a lot more money than I've got in my checkbook.
Well, but see, okay, so that's another good question, and that actually kind of comes to what the mayor was stating. No, this is not like the checkbook. I'll be the first to say that. This is not. These numbers here, these numbers are numbers that are flexible. You have the opportunity and actually the privilege of being able to change those numbers. So, I mean, conceivably, you know, if you decided, or if council, I'm sorry, not just one individual, but if council decided, okay, we need to put 50,000 more into street fund capital, you can do that. You can add that money, or you can subtract or deduct from it. In your checkbook, whatever cash you have in your bank account better be reflected in your checkbook. But that isn't the same here, because these are budget numbers. These are projections of what we would A, propose, and then B, finally, what council would say, this is what we approve. So, no, not at all. These numbers are different. And so and by the way, I absolutely agree. I think when we started, one of the things that I said when I made the presentation was that basically we were looking at, for the most part, about a 2% increase across the board, which is, so you knew that because you recited that or echoed that earlier today. But these numbers are projections. These are approximations, because that's the best that we can do. We don't know exactly how much money we're going to spend. So that's where, and again, that's why, and I've even talked with the chair of finance. I said, listen, we absolutely will. We'll bring the reports, and then we'll talk about, you know, kind of where we are periodically in the, you know, during the year, so people can understand that. I've sat in that chair as well, and I was here when people didn't understand. To be honest with you, they didn't understand the year-end adjustment. I do know as well that you know, you can't just try to make decisions on the fly, because you're talking about a budget that has literally, as you said, millions of dollars, and just shifting numbers like that can affect and impact, you know, other areas. So it is something that we've taken time to present and to prepare. And again, that is what we do try to convey, you know, during either the finance committee meetings or the council meetings. But yes, but to be clear, this is much different than what you and I would balance in our checkbook.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
I mean, not to be rude, but it's getting really late. I mean, because I know I don't feel like we're necessarily making any progress. We're kind of talking about communication problems here. I mean,
I don't think we are talking about communication problems.
I mean, it sounds like it to me. I mean, like, can we try to wrap it up in 10 minutes?
Can I just have a quick question then? So, Mr. Mosby, I heard you say that you're planning to buy 2 trucks for that $218,000, and I'll just go out on a limb, and I find it hard to believe that a truck is $108,000.
I don't think I said that.
So,
no.
So what I think is there's still more money left behind in there. But I guess the other point I wanted to make is, you said that council is to govern the charge that we have given you. And if we don't know what you're planning to do with that $218,000, I'll suspect that someone like Miss Underwood would love to take that $218,000 and put it towards Prospect Place. So had we known that your goal or your intention was to buy pickup trucks, we might have had a different idea for it. But we didn't know that, so we couldn't provide any input.
Right.
And I'm quite positive you know that Miss Underwood is really pounding hard to get Progress Place done. So maybe she'd have pitched to council that we put that 218 towards Progress Place.
So,
That's my whole
Mr.
point.
President, if I could, so what I would like to see from council, because just so, you know, we can be open, clear, I'm visual. So if someone from council, if you guys want to get together and send us an example of what you're looking for. So if you take the street levy and you say equipment capital, no, we're talking about, I don't have my glasses on, so I was,
Well, right now it's
okay, you're talking about the street fund capital. you wanna know what's in there, then maybe you go truck, write it in there so we have a, some clear, because I do know that this version of the budget is what council asked for a few years ago, because it wasn't as detailed as this. I remember that you asked Ms. Long and Ms. Burton to give you a different type of layout. So they added different things than what it was for. So if someone sends us exactly what you're looking for, then maybe we can alleviate this.
But I had a conversation with Mr. Mosby about these items.
No, I understand that, Ms. DeWalt.
I didn't,
What I'm saying,
I questioned it, we were in that room.
because I'm getting the impression that it's something that you want to see on this sheet as well. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to take away from
I
your
was only asking for clarification about what that money was going to be, because it was such a, it's almost $300,000.
I understand what you're saying, but I heard over here that it's not visual on here. When I read this document, I don't know what that is for. So I don't know what other way we can get it in the document if
Right.
that's where it needs to be, other than you saying, I want to see it here and I want it spelled out, which means the sheets are going to be huge and long.
It stems from, I know several councilwomen who brought that question up. What is new on here that I should see? And that one never came
Again,
up.
I understand that. So what I'm saying, if that's not going to be beneficial, we talked about two different things. I just threw that suggestion out. If you want to see it in this document, or do you want us to write up a different document that says cars, we upped it for $50,000 because we're going to purchase 3 new vehicles? Which way works better? The document over here or adding it to this? Personally, I think it should go on the document where he says I increased this fund by $50,000 with the intent of buying 4 space heaters or whatever. That's just my suggestion. I mean, we can't move or do what you want if we don't, you know what I'm saying? We can talk about it all day long.
I know.
We can talk about it all day long and
I know.
still be in the same place. But if we don't get direction that's beneficial for us, we're gonna keep having these conversations. So for myself, I just need to know. So what do you want? Do you want it in the document over here, or do you want something else spelled out in here? But I understand everything that you said. I wasn't privy to any of those
Right, I
conversations
understand.
that you had with him.
So-
I was at the council meetings, but I
But
know
that's a
that you
very
guys.
difficult question to answer.
Okay.
I think what should happen is when we get this document in the very beginning, we should get it a week before Finance Committee. And each one of us be responsible and highlight, why did this get bumped up? What is this gonna be earmarked for? And then we can have a better picture of what that document is. And I know that's a line-by-line type of scenario, but I don't know any other way to be responsible.
Prior to, so if I may, Mr. Wall, prior to this year was a bit of an exception because, of course, we lost our
Right.
finance manager at the time. But prior to that, if you remember, I actually did put it out in September, and we actually had a hearing.
And the budget
This
was
year,
passed
I'm-
before the end of the year.
I'm not going to make, I'm not making any excuse, but I do agree, it was much closer because I was working with, a very limited, personnel at that time to be able to put this together. And I must say that, you asked about Carol, and she really did I believe she did a superb job of coming in to help put that together. So I really want to be clear. I'm not at all bothered by the questions because I get it. I do understand that. This year, I don't anticipate that to happen. I do anticipate that we would be able to be back to having it to you around September timeframe, and then that way you'd have the opportunity to ask those questions. The only thing that I would say is, again, I try to make sure that I'm available to any council member who asks questions. I don't have a problem asking those, or with someone asking me. And I will definitely give the answer to the best of my ability. If it's an answer that needs to be given to all the council, maybe it's something that has to be presented that way. If it's just something that one person has, we can do it. But having said that, once the budget is passed, I would hope and expect that, that is council saying, okay, administration, let's go ahead and get these things done, which is what my intent is to do, is to get these things accomplished. There's a lot. That's why when Matt asked me to give an account of what was happening with the economic development consultant. So I want to, because I want to see that too. Believe me, that would help me a lot. Right?
Absolutely.
Yes, and you were one, and I let me say this. I do appreciate the fact that you have said many times, yeah, there's a lot that you do, and of course, more of that keeps piling up, and it gets tougher. But this would help a lot, being able to have an economic development consultant. The same thing here. Yes, we are looking at, and I did talk to Public Works and said, look, we need to make sure that we keep our equipment, updated. And when I say updated, current, we need to make sure that we have good operating trucks, because our trucks take a lot of beating on the road, whether it's for the winter, salt, the summer that they're, conveying or doing other kind of cleaning. So yes, I do need to make sure that we keep a current inventory of capital equipment, or working capital equipment. That's what I intend to do.
Perfect,
And
thank
I'm
you.
not going to, and I don't intend on overspending,
Right,
for those
right.
things, so.
And I have one other question, and then a thing to do with the budget, maybe. So,
Okay.
in our cleanup, for the cleanups for our city, Mary Jo and I belong to a service organization, and we always clean Wise Park. And the brick wall is coming down. So eventually it's going to be a huge hazard, because now the back end is starting, and like I said, the end cap has been. Who is responsible for that, and how do we get that, how do we bring it to someone's attention to fix it?
That park, you were at the meeting. Do you want to?
The park is gonna be, park is gonna be updated. It's in CIC's plans.
Wonderful.
And, the person, Weiss, they're gonna check, to see if, let me see, the donations come from
The
three
Jewish
areas.
Federation, I
Jewish
believe, has offered to
Federation,
help in this
the
case.
CIC
Great.
and North College Hill. So I think is the tree coming down also? They
I
wanted,
don't know about the tree,
yeah.
but they're going to redo the entire
whole
park.
park.
They're going
and
to.
then,
They're going to rebuild the wall.
Okay.
especially the plaque, it's gonna be
Oh,
bigger.
no, not another plaque. We know what
No,
happens
it's
to
gonna be
plaques.
bigger and more visible with Weiss, the person's name on it. So they're gonna redo the whole thing. And I'm pretty sure the brick wall is coming down, but we've been discussing that in CIC.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great time to break.
I don't think it is.
Yeah. Half time until next month. All right, we ready to adjourn? Everybody good? Yep.